Girl. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about A Court of Mist and Fury. This is the second book following A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I had literally just covered that book last week. Couldn't help but continue it. I kind of was sickly curious, and then at this point, I literally cannot DNF anything, and I have to know the answers to everything, even though it might not be something that I enjoy. Truly, one of the worst parts about me being a reader is like that inability. In case you're curious, currently on Goodreads, this book has a 4.63. I believe this is the highest rated one in the entire series. According to Goodreads, is her best one yet. And it is over 600 pages. This was a freaking marathon to get through. And to be clear, I'm maybe not in love with it, but obviously I like it enough that I can't put it down, and obviously I liked it enough to read 600 pages worth, so I'm not totally knocking it. I get why it's popular, kind of, sort of, maybe a little bit. I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum. I'm just here to tell you about this book in case you're curious and you're wondering what the whole, public discourse, zeitgeist, I don't know, craziness, trendiness is about it all. I'm just here to tell you about it. Especially for anybody who does not want to read it or whatever, right? That's what I'm here for. I'm going to give you a beat by beat, chapter by chapter breakdown of this book. We're going to have a little bit of gossipy sesh. It's going to be a really good time. I only have one rule on the channel. Say it with me. Don't make it weird, okay? Don't continue watching. Don't leave weird comments. If you're the author, obviously, or friends, fans, family, or stans specifically, I know that this has like a Taylor Swift level cult following against this or for this or whatever. Not the place to be, okay, if you can't have like regular discourse with people, if you're gonna make it weird. So I'll catch you on the next one if that's the case. And then otherwise, let's go ahead and dive right in. Oh. So if you're curious, or if it's been a while since you watched book number one, like I said, I just did a review of it if you want to watch that deep dive. However, if you just want like a real brief, quick, like summary catch-up thing, we have our main character, Feyre, who is I believe she's like 19 years old in book number one. She goes out hunting. She is pretty much the only one that takes care of her family. Her mother died when she was young. Her dad is disabled and does not provide for the family. And she has two sisters that are like crapheads and don't do anything. So she's over here like a lone wolf in it, taking care of everybody. One day she's out hunting. She kills a wolf. Turns out that wolf was a fae. Turns out, there is some treaty between the fae and the humans. There's this great war like 500 years ago. The fae used to enslave the humans, but there was this whole like war between them. And then they had this treaty and they put up this wall to separate them. So the fae would stay on the one side, the humans on the other. The fae have been coming through the wall, and she ended up killing one of them. This violated the treaty and made it so the leader of the fae, one of the kings of the fae people, came to collect her. And he said, hey, I either have to kill you or you have to come with me to the fae territory to make up for killing one of my men. Oh my God, my cat is on the bookshelf. So she decides to go with him. She ends up falling in love with him. His name is Tamlin. In the process of falling in love with him, there's a whole bunch of like drama, and he shows her the good life, and it's great. And everybody is super, super duper happy until the day comes that they meet the Night Lord, or the Lord of the Night Court. His name is Rhysand or Rhysand. I might go back and forth on how I pronounce his name. My bad. I won't do it intentionally. It's just a thing. I'm not good with names if you're new here. And if you are new here, hey. He's kind of like this bad guy, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And then we get introduced to this idea of Amarantha. Amarantha is this woman who ended up, there's 7 lords of these different like fairy lands. Like there's the night court, spring court, like it's all the seasonal courts, and then there's like a day, dawn, and night court. There's like temporal courts and then the seasonal courts. So there's 7 of these high lords. Amarantha works for this other king guy who is like on a different island, and works for him, came over, tricked all these kings to go to this party, stole all their powers, put them under this curse, took all the kings under this mountain, and then like went on to torture them and try to take over all of their stuff and like take over this whole land. Now you're asking, what does this have to do with anything? Well, the fact that Tamlin is one of these kings, he is not stuck under the mountain like all the other ones are. I think it's only like some of the kings are under the mountain. All the other ones just had their like powers zapped or whatever. But in order to break this curse, Tamlin had to, within the next 50 years, get a human woman to kill one of his men, to come over to the fairy world, fall in love with him, say that she loves him, and then the curse would be broken. There's a whole thing behind it. It has to do with like her past and stuff. And I don't know, again, like I'm just giving you a brief summary. Highly recommend you going and watching the long form video if you want to know 100% like what's going on. But yes, so this was the curse. Feyre has no idea about this curse. She just had gotten taken over here under a lie, right? He said that it was because of this treaty. There's no such thing. It was just trying to trick her into breaking this curse. Does not work. Tamlin gets taken away and he gets taken to the underground mountain. Feyre, after he gets taken, does find out about the curse because the time has passed. Like the 50 years has expired. They've been taken. The curse will remain in place forever now. They have missed their like one opportunity to break it. So she finds out about this and she says, oh my God, I've got to save my man. I love him. This is crazy. So she, this lone 19-year-old girl, decides, I'm gonna go and beat her ass. Goes down under the mountain, gets caught, obviously, almost gets tortured. Like, I don't know what she was really expecting with all of these, like, super-powered fairy people, and you're just a regular human. But she goes in here, Amarantha, she's like, you know what, actually, you're kind of pissing me off, but I'm kind of impressed by how ballsy you are, so let's make a deal. Which, never make a deal with a fairy. She says, let's make a deal. If you beat these 3 trials, I'll set everybody free. We'll break the curse. You just have to beat these 3 trials or solve this riddle. If you solve this riddle, I will break the curse immediately. Feyre, not really having an option, she says, aye, aye, Captain, let's do it. So she's under the mountain. She's in a prison cell. Every full moon, she gets taken out to try to solve one of these trials. In doing so, after the first one, it's this crazy worm thing. She ends up beating the worm's ass. She wins. Yay, awesome. She ends up getting like a broken arm and she's covered in the mud from the worm and she's like getting infected and like almost dying. And Rysand, he has been stuck under the mountain for the last 50 years as part of this whole deal as well. He's been stuck under here with Amarantha and he has been kept as her like slave, okay? Like not good. So he's been stuck under here doing this with her. And he also is just in general a prick, right? Like we talked about, he's just like painted out to be this like really bad monster guy. He talks mad crap to Feyre. He also controls shadows. And so he like shadows into her prison cell and makes a deal with her in order to heal her and keep her from dying. And the deal is she has to go to the night court 1 week a month for the rest of her life to like repay his debt for healing her. And she obviously agrees to this because otherwise she would die. So she makes this deal. She ends up with this like tattoo on her arm because of the deal. And then he heals her. He bets on her to win a whole bunch of stuff. Like he believes in her and believes that she'll be able to beat this curse, right? He obviously doesn't say this like to her face or anything. All he does is like talk crap and whatever. We get to round 2. She is illiterate. She was never taught to read. She was never really given an education. After her mom died, her dad went to crap, and then her sisters just never really thought about it, right? So she's illiterate, and the trial is to like read a question and answer it and to pull down one of the levers. She freaks out because obviously she cannot like process this or like read anything of what's happening. But Rysand, because of the deal that he made with her, talks to her through her arm, like they have like a mental connection now and stuff, and she ends up pulling the right lever with Rysand's guidance. Awesome. They get through this. And then begins arguably one of the more like messed up part of the books that make people hate Rysand. Don't get me wrong, okay? I'm telling you how it is. A lot of people don't like him for this next part because he begins taking her to all of these parties. And it's like every single night he will take her out. He has his 2 like servants paint her body all over with paint that like it'll get smudged if anybody touches her, because he wants to take her out to these parties, show her off in front of Tamlin and in front of Amarantha to make both of them jealous and to piss Tamlin off. he has this like very personal vendetta against Tamlin. They go dancing, they whatever, and he makes her drink fairy wine that gets her uber drunk and like blackout, so she has no idea what's going on during the nights. And then she just goes back to her room. Okay? He's assisting her as much as he can, but then he's also like basically drugging her and then like showing off and like using her in front of everybody. And so it's just a mess. Okay, all of this is like really like icky, gross, messy stuff. Finally, third trial comes around. She has to kill these 3 fairies. They're innocent, they've done nothing wrong, absolutely just decent people. But Feyre has to kill them. She has to stab each of them in the heart with an ash arrow. Ashwood is like one of the only things that is deadly to fairies. They otherwise heal quickly, but if they are injured with an ashwood thing, or if like an ashwood arrow is stuck inside of them, it makes them not be able to heal. Like their blood won't heal and stuff. So this is like the only way to kill a fairy. And so Feyre has a ashwood like dagger in front of each of these people. She has to go up and stab them in the heart. She does the first one. Obviously this is like very traumatic, really difficult for her to do, but she does, because she wants to free Tamlin and his people and to break this curse and to set everybody free. So she fights through it. She stabs the first one. She stabs the second one. When she goes to stab the third fae that's in front of her, it was a glamour. So like she saw a different person, and then the glamour disappears, and it turns out it was actually Tamlin. So now she has to stab Tamlin in the heart. So obviously this is not very good. This does not bode well. And Amarantha is just laughing about it because she's like, well, I just said the curse would be over. I didn't say he would be alive at the end of it. Like blah, 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 blah. This is part of the whole trickery of like not taking or whatever. But there's a secret. And the secret is Tamlin has a heart of stone. And Feyre found this out through listening and eavesdropping through a bunch of conversations over the last couple of months that she was living with Tamlin. So she goes to stab him in the heart, and he does not die. He survives. And so the curse is broken, and everybody's all super excited about it. But Amarantha, she's like, well, I didn't say when I would set them free. I just said that I would. So then she starts to like torture Feyre and like break all of her bones, and comes over and starts beating the crap out of her. And Rysand comes over to try to help. So he starts fighting Amarantha. She shoves him away, and Tamlin starts to try to beat up Amarantha, and she shoves him away. And then all of a sudden, right as Feyre is about to die, she realizes the solution to the riddle. She says, the solution is love. And then Amarantha snaps her neck and kills her. Oh, that's crazy. Luckily, all 7 of the High Lords, like the super big deal Fae guys, are here. They each like give her a drop of their magic to revive her. And so now she wakes up and she is a fairy. She has been revived. She like comes back to life, and she is a fairy. Awesome. Okay, so that's how book 1 ends. The other thing to note about book 1 is after she died, she began to see herself through Rysand's eyes because of the deal that they made, right? That she has the tattooed arm thing about the once a month visit. And then at the very end of book 1, after they kill Amarantha, everything's good. The kings all have their power back. Everybody's moving on with their lives, and they're all about to leave the mountain. Rysand like calls her up to his room through the bond, through their like little telepathic communication thing that they've got going on. He says, you know, hey, what's it like being a human? Or what's it like being a fairy? Blah, blah, blah. And he goes to leave, like teleport away. And he goes to teleport away. And as he's doing so, he looks up at Feyre, and then he like stumbles and disappears. And I thought that, I was like, oh, maybe she's like a super fae. Like maybe he saw something and realized that like because she got powers from all of them, he saw something that made her be like this like super amazing person. And people had commented, because I had never read any of these, right? Up until this point, like I am live experiencing this with you. I don't know what happens in book 3. I don't know what happens in the future at all. And so book 1, when I was making my guesses about things, I didn't know what the future held for me. I understand now why people said that I was going to be pissed off. I get it now. So that was that. And then she went home with Tamlin to the Spring Court to live happily ever after. Okay, there you go. So that was book number 1. Now we go into book number 2. Book number 2 opens with a prologue from Feyre's perspective. She is not doing well. Like, obviously, understandably, after book number 1's events where she was under the mountain and had to kill those 2 innocent Fae, and after all of the other like torture and beatings and everything and just this like horrible experience for this like 3-month time period, she has nightmares constantly, right? She's having these like PTSD episodes. She's having nightmares. It is very horrific for her. She feels incredibly guilty. She doesn't want to be alive. She doesn't want to like do anything, right? She's just in this very, very depressed, understandably depressed state. Chapter 1 opens with her waking up from one of these nightmares. And she notes how she goes to the bathroom and she's throwing up and how it never wakes up Tamlin. He has super hearing. He has super sensitive everything, right? He hears her, but they just kind of like ignore each other's coping with the horrific things that they've had to deal with. And they just don't talk about it. And they just try to like move on and act like everything is like kind of sort of okay. And so often in like chapter 1, it was fine, where she's talking about how, you know, she's like, I freed Tamlin, I freed his people, and I freed everybody of Prythian, which is the name of like the fairy land area. You know, I freed everybody of Prythian, right? She's the curse breaker. She's like this like coveted, idolized person, right? Oh, understandably so, right? She broke this 50-year-long curse and like helped everybody get free and get their power back. However, she had to break herself apart to do this. Like I said, understandable. It gets so excessive. I'm not even like shitting you right now. I'm pretty sure at least 200 pages of this, again, over 600 page book is solely dedicated to her thinking about how bad she feels, to thinking about how she can't believe that she had to kill those people and how she can't believe that she had to, you know, endure these things. And I get it. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying like, I get it. I didn't need 200 pages of it, of the same exact thoughts, of the same exact internalized, like, oh, this is how I feel. This is how I feel. This is how I feel. That doesn't do anything for the reader other than like piss me off and make me just like scroll through paragraphs that I swear to God I've read 8 times over by now, right? I understand the severity of it. Trust, hey, homie, I understand the severity of like feeling so bad, right? Obviously I haven't murdered anybody, but you know what I'm saying, right? I get the depressive aspect of it, but in like the ruminating, 100% get the ruminating part of it. But this was so just repetitive because we're in her head. So instead of, I don't know, conveying all of the different ways that she isn't like living up to what she wants to be doing, or all of the different ways that she isn't functioning like a normal human being, we just get more and more, I'm so sad, I can't believe I killed those people, repeated sentences. So that's like my beef with the whole book. So chapter 1, that's fine. Establish how sad she is and how depressed she is. In chapter 2, her and Tamlin are about to get married. In 2 weeks, they're going to get married. And she feels trapped because he is so protective of her, which I think is also understandable from like his perspective. He literally watched her die and watched her, like, held her lifeless body in his hands. So it's a little understandable that he's hesitant of letting her go out and, for example, hunt monsters with him. He's going out and trying to, like, they're trying to kill off like the last of the beasts that Amarantha had like brought with her or something, or like the havoc that she's wreaked across his court and across the world. Like, he's just going around trying to like fix stuff, right? Supposedly. And he doesn't want her to go out on these hunts with him. He's like, no, you can't leave the house. You can't leave the house. And anytime she goes anywhere, she's like 87 freaking bodyguards. Everybody's watching her. She's not allowed to do anything alone. And he just does not want to take her to the town, doesn't want to do anything. So she is feeling so, again, even more isolated and even more depressed because she's stuck in this freaking house. The other thing that we find out in chapter 2 is there's this high priestess that comes and stays with them. Iantha, maybe is how you say her name. I don't think I'm going to say it like too often, but if you're new to the channel, again, hi, welcome. I'll have a running name list up here so you guys can, I don't know what side I'll have it on. I'll have a name list somewhere next to me of the people so you can kind of keep track of everybody and what's happening So Iantha is this high priestess that has come to hang out at the spring court with Feyre. And Tamlin brought her to help Feyre plan for the wedding, and also to kind of keep her company, try to keep her happy while she's stuck in the house. This is like her only friend. This is the only person that she can talk to. This is like her one singular lifeline, is this high priestess. Through doing this and having these conversations with her, and she opens up about her life and her sisters and, you know, about the wedding and kind of how much that she doesn't care about anything right now. And Iantha just helps her like plan everything and whatever, and comes up about how when they get married, it's not like a king and queen. She will just be his wife, right? She won't be the high lady. That's not a position. That's not a thing. They have like the kings and that's it. Your job is to literally just get married to him, hang out in this beautiful castle and have babies, like, and, you know, throw balls and stuff, like, right? Like do the whole like social part of it and have all these feasts and these balls, and you're doing that part of it. You're not gonna fight. What do you mean, you huntress? I know we brought you here because you killed something and that's all you want to do is go and be outside and get stronger, but no, you're just gonna be this weak little lady trapped in this cage. So her realizing this and realizing that she will never be treated as Tamlin's equal, she is starting to spiral even more so about this like upcoming wedding. Eventually, as like, I don't know, placating her, Tamlin allows her to go into town with Lucien, who is his like second in command. They go into town. Nobody lets her help with anything. She wants to help with repairing all of these villages that got like decimated by Amarantha and her armies. She wants to help, but nobody wants to. Again, she's like put on this pedestal. She's this like magical, you know, being basically to them. She's Feyre the Curse Breaker, and she has this name, and so nobody wants assistance from her. So she just rides her horse back to the freaking castle where she yet again is just stuck there. And Lucien, the entire time, he's like, hey, I know you're a little stressed out. I know this sucks, but Tamlin, he loves you so much. Like, your safety is his number one concern. He's doing this out of the goodness of his heart, right? He's just trying to reassure her. It'll get better over time. You just got to be patient with him. He just doesn't know how to like manage all of this stuff, but he loves you. I promise. Okay. Just like you just have to be patient with him. And then he also brings up a point about how the other reason that Tamlin doesn't want her to go to town and be around all these people is because it reminds them of the bad times, like all of the suffering that they had to deal with for the last 50 years, that they're trying to rebuild and start new. And when they look at her and see her, they have to think of Amarantha and how that would be really terrible for them, which is also so freaking shitty. Like, what a crappy thing to say to her, right? So again, she just feels guilty even more so and is just now even like locking herself away. Chapter 4, it's wedding day. She has yet another nightmare. All she can think of is what happened under the mountain. And so she's trying so hard to just wedding. I'm going to be happy. We're going to get married. Everything's fine. I have moved on, right? She's like really trying to like force this like down her own throat of like, this is what happiness is. And if I can just get through this, if we can just get married, everything will be okay. She begins walking down the aisle and the ceremony's beginning, and she starts freaking out. She starts having, again, like the whole PTSD stuff, because when she like looks out at the crowd looking at her, it reminds her of being in the arena, like during the Under the Mountain things, when she would try to like survive whenever she had her trials and she had all those people watching all the time. So that's what she's thinking of. So she wants to say no to this wedding. She wants to run away. She cannot do this. Like, this is horrible. Everything is falling apart. But luckily, I guess, maybe for her, all of a sudden, Rysand appears. It has been 3 months since the whole incident under the mountain, and he's never came to collect her before. And so she was like, oh, you know, maybe he forgot about it, right? Maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he has been, you know, I don't know, doing his own thing, and he's just totally forgotten about me. So he appears for the very first time the day of their wedding, right in the aisle, interrupts the whole shindig, and he says, you have a bargain to deal with. You have to come with me to the night court for the next week. Tamlin cannot say no because you can't break a bargain. Like a fairy bargain, it's a huge deal. It breaks fairy law or whatever. So he has to let it happen. He grabs her they winnow or like teleport basically away. And she ends up at the night court, and it's beautiful. Like, he teleports her to this like absolutely beautiful night sky and this gorgeous house, and everything is just awesome. Surprisingly, she thought it would just be full of torture, because the under the mountain area that Amarantha made is modeled after one of Rysand's cities. It's like Hewn City. It's the main city in the Night Court, and it's this like really evil, horrible place underground. It's like this underground prison, whatever. So everybody dreads it, and the Night Court has this like reputation of being horrible, angry people that just like torture everyone, and they're so like uncouth, and Rysand is just the worst, most angry, brutal guy in the entire world, because he has all these crazy shadow superpowers, and he can like break people's minds and whatever. So when she shows up here and it's actually super chill, blows her mind off the bat, and he tries to talk to her, just trying to have a casual, just like a normal conversation. And he makes fun of her a little bit about her marriage, because that's all he ever does is just like taunt her and like talk crap to her. But he reassures her of like, hey, you're not a prisoner. You're going to be treated with respect. Like, you're here. You can do whatever you want, okay? And this is very, very reminiscent of when she was taken to the Spring Court by Tamlin in book number 1, where he did the same thing. And he reassured her constantly, hey, you're not a prisoner here. Whatever, we can give you anything you want. Literally the exact same like formula, just now in the Night Court. He leaves her to it, so she goes into her room. Again, it's absolutely gorgeous. And she takes a bath, and she cries herself to sleep that night, and just like regretting everything that's happened, and her wedding and her hesitation about it, and trying to reflect on all of this. And now she's stuck here with Rysand, and just spiraling all night. The next morning, when she goes to have breakfast, he is there. They're eating together, and he says, hey, just to let you know a little bit here, little lady, the bargain that we made, the whole reason she has the whole arm tattoo, and the whole reason that you're here for the next week, and a week out of every month for the rest of your life, it forged a bond between us, and I can hear your thoughts like all the time, especially when they're really, really strong. You like send it down our bond, and I know what's like happening with you. And so I rescued you from your wedding because you were doubting it so bad. You were practically screaming down our bond that you did not want to marry Tamlin. And, you know, she tries to deny it, and she's also like, that's so invasive. I can't believe you would read my thoughts like that. And he says, yeah, I know. Speaking of that, let's go ahead and fix it. I have one task for you. That's it. Like I said, you're not a prisoner, but I do have like 2 things that I need you to work on for the next week while you're here. You're going to learn how to read, and we're gonna work on your shields of your thoughts, so you can like protect your own brain. She pushes back because she's embarrassed, and she thinks that maybe he's like trying to make fun of her about the whole reading thing, but he's not. He's like, hey dude, you literally almost died during the trials because you couldn't read. You probably should be able to. So we're gonna go ahead and work on that while you're here. They start the tutoring session. He writes her a note, and he has her read it. And the note says, you look absolutely delicious today. And this pisses her off. And so he can, again, read her mind. And so now begins the whole practicing of the mental shield thing. And he like walks her through the process of how to like protect her brain. During this time as well, we get introduced to Rysand's cousin, Morrigan. She goes by Moore. She shows up, she's beautiful, she's friendly, she's bubbly, she's awesome, okay? Super, super strong badass. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. The other thing to note is during their conversations, he is wondering what her powers are, because she can do like the mental thing. There's something else that she did where he's like, oh, maybe you have superpowers from each of the 7 kings, right? Each of the 7 kings, in order to revive her, right? They gave her like a little drop of their magic or whatever the heck. And so he's like, I wonder if you have their abilities. Tamlin's is shape-shifting. His is shadow and like mind stuff. And then there's like water, fire, air. I don't know, stuff. And he's like, I wonder if you have all these powers. And she's like, I don't know. Tamlin won't let me find out. We just act like I don't have them at all. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. Speaking of that, if you stay at the Spring Court, you know, you're literally just going to be there for just to be arm candy and to give him babies. And that's going to be the extent of your life on the spring court versus here at the night court where you could like be anything and do anything. Like, is that really what you want? You know, because she kept talking about wanting him to break the bond or break the bargain. Later that night, he takes her up to this room and there's a giant map of Prithian, right, of the fairy lands. And it highlights the night court. Like everything else is filled out. And then there's nothing filled out on the night court. There's absolutely no information about it whatsoever. And she's wondering if this is intentional or if he's like blocking her mind from seeing it or something, you know, to like try to keep his place safe in case she's like spying on him or whatever. And then he makes a mention while looking at the map about the wall that divides Prithian from the humans. He makes a comment about how that wall is going to come down soon. And this freaks Feyre out because she's like, my family, we live right at the border of the wall. My sisters, my dad, you know, I don't want them to get hurt. And obviously the rest of the human race. Like, you can't do that. And he's like, I'm not doing it. He's like, I'm not the one that's going to break down the wall. But King Hybern, or King of Hybern, who is the guy who hired Amarantha and had sent her originally 50 years ago to do the spell. No, I think she was in Prithian for like 100 years. She spent 50 years schmoozing and then 50 years under the spell, or putting the people under the spell. She worked for King Hybern, okay? King Hybern, after this curse being broken, is more motivated than ever to attack and to get this wall to come down to attack the humans. That was the whole point of Amarantha being there, was to get Prithian all on the same page, get them all to work together to take down the humans, okay? The only reason she waited was because of the deal that she made with Tamlin. And so, like, quite literally at this point, the only thing that stands between King Hybern and, like, taking down the humans in the wall is that Prithian is, like, it's like Hybern's island, Prithian island, and then the little humans are, like, down here. So he would have to go through Prithian to get to the humans. And so that's, like, a whole thing. Potential war. I don't know. Will Prithian go to war for the humans to protect them again? I don't know. We'll talk about it. He offers to help her gain control and figure out all of those powers that maybe she got from all of the different kings. And she hesitates, you know, and he again pushes it. So much of this, I cannot emphasize this enough to you, is repeated. So many of these, it's multiple conversations had 4 times over with different phrasing, but it's the exact same idea. It's the exact same thing. So again, he says, hey, you've got all these superpowers, basically. Let me teach you how to use them. She hesitates, and he's like, okay, again, you can just go and be arm candy on the spring court, or you can stay here and I can train you and you can be this like powerful thing that you want to be, and you can play a role. You know, if you master these powers, you could probably fight in this war and you could save the humans. Time passes, there's continuing reading, and then he has to go and disappear to go and deal with some stuff because there was an attack at a temple, and he has to go and meet with his 2 like army leaders. He has like a spy master and then an army leader named Azriel and Cassian. I'm probably slaughtering all of these names. I'm so sorry. You're going to have to deal with it. We'll talk about Azriel and Cassian a lot later, but I'm just going to go ahead and put their names up on the list so you can kind of keep them in mind as we go. So Rysand has to go and join them to go and deal with like shenanigans that's happening at this other temple, and leaves Feyre to continue reading and working on mental shielding. At the end of the week, she is about to return to the spring court, and he says, hey, just a reminder, you didn't want to get married, right? I didn't just like steal you willy-nilly. You didn't want to get married to him. And also, I'm not your enemy. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to whatever. I'm not the bad guy here. You see how nice you've had it pretty much for this last week. And with that, she gets teleported back to the spring court, and she wants to immediately, she's so relieved to be back, she wants to hook up with Tamlin. Tamlin says no because he's like weary of her, and he's like, I want to hear everything while it's fresh on your mind. I want to hear every single conversation you heard, every like detail of every room, everything that you know about the night court, because it is such a mystery and it is such this like elusive thing, and nobody's ever really gone to the night court and come back. All of them die when they go there. So let's hear it. Give us like all of the information that you have. She does. And then after she's done spilling her guts of everything that she went through this last week, which she does feel guilty about, by the way, because she's like, he did show me kindness, and this does feel a little effed up to like betray him, but I'm not betraying him. He's the monster. He made this deal with me. He can't be surprised by this. She like tells everything about the night court to Tamlin and Lucien. And then at the end of it, she's like, and hey, by the way, what about these other powers, right? Like, I want to learn how to use all of these powers. Like, do you think I have them? And like, can I train them? And they push back immediately. Lucien says, if the High Kings, if all of the other ones, High Lords or whatever, if they find out that you have their powers, they would either kill you to get their power back because they'd be pissed off that you had even an ounce of their power, or you would be such like a coveted thing that they would want to like reproduce with, because your spawn, and I'm saying all of these very vulgar words because that's like how it's presented, of they would just want to have your kids, right? Like you would be this like thing. You wouldn't be a woman to them anymore. You wouldn't be a wife. You wouldn't be a partner. You would just be like a reproductive vessel to them to give them super, super powerful sons. Tamlin forbids her. He says, you will not work on these powers. You will not train with rice sand on these powers. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because he, again, is so afraid of her getting hurt or getting taken away from him again. A week later, it is the tithing. The tithing is where everybody in the spring court brings an offering to Tamlin. It's a mandatory thing. There's like a mandatory amount that you have to bring, and if you don't, you get punished, right? And it's up to Tamlin what that punishment is, or you have to basically like double it or bring it back or make it up to him or whatever. To his credit, the tithing is supposed to happen monthly, but he pushed it back a couple of months to allow everybody to get back into their normal routines and get settled after this like great war and everything that they had been in. But it's still kind of crappy that you're a king taking all of this stuff from these people that have less than you. And that's what she says. She's like, are we really doing this? You're sitting here having these people who have nothing to their names giving you something when we at this castle have like more than we could ever need, more than we could ever even imagine using, and you're going to sit here and take more from your subjects that's just going to go to waste anyway. And he's like, well, it's tradition. Like, this is what everybody's always done. This is how pretty much like how you keep them loyal, I guess, or this is like they owe us. Really weird. But he's like, yeah, so I'm maintaining tradition, but I did give them a couple months. So like, you gotta, I am a good guy. It's weird. And one of the people, it's the wraiths, a water wraith, shows up, and she doesn't have anything to give him. There's like no fish, nothing that she can offer. He dismisses her, pretty much saying like, okay, we'll bring double next month when you come here to make up for this like transgression. She again leans over to Tamlin and she's like, seriously, like just forgive it. And he's like, I can't forgive it. If I forgive it, then nobody will bring anything ever again. Like, we have to, maintain order. We've got to do this. And this like disappoints her and frustrates her so bad that she storms out. Everybody looks at her all sideways, all crazy. And she chases after the wraith, follows like through the courtyard, goes, tracks her down, whatever, takes off her jewelry, gives it to the water wraith and says, I don't care what you do with this, like give him what you owe him and use the rest to get yourself some food. Obviously, when Tamlin finds out about this later that night, he is pissed and he's yelling at her about it, about how she's like undermining him. And this is such like a critical time in the court and they're all still recovering and you can't do stuff like that. And they just get in this whole like argument back and forth about it, right? That night when she's going to sleep, Elise, who we mentioned like a couple of times in the last book, and this is the one of two times in this entire book that she gets mentioned, so she will not be up on the screen. But Elise was her, like, or is her rather, like, dedicated maid, servant person lady who's like helping her out with everything. So she's braiding her hair before bed, and Elise says, that was really nice of you, the wraiths will remember that kindness. But that's also kind of silly because they're going to burn through that in like a couple of days. And it was kind of for nothing what you did. But that is cool of you and they will remember it. And that does actually come up in this book. So we have that in our back pocket. She goes walking around and finds Tamlin in the study. And he apologizes to her, for his yelling at her earlier. and he gives her a gift as like an apology. And the gift that he gives her is a painting set. She loved painting. That was like her favorite thing when she was growing up. Anytime that they had any spare amount of money, that's what she did. You know, she, in book 1, reflected on this summer when she had a bit of extra money and her sister Elaine had bought her paint, and how she painted the dressers of the house and like everywhere that she could with this. It was this really good memory of hers, but she never had the time or the money to paint until she came to the spring court before the whole Under the Mountain thing. And so that little bit of time where she was with Tamlin before going under the mountain, she fell in love with painting. She got this passion back, and he had all of the means to support it. And so she was painting and everything was gorgeous and she was so happy. But since the mountain, she does not want to paint. She cannot paint. It is this really like triggering thing because it just reminds her of the past when she was happy, and she's feeling so incredibly low right now that all it does is remind her of what she's lost. All it does is like remind her of her human life and this past that she has and how drastically her life has changed, right? He's trying to be nice, but this is like a horrific gift. And so in response to this, she's like, hey, can you just like not guard me so much? Like, I understand painting, great gift, awesome. But like as a real gift, like what you could really do to make me feel better about everything is just have less guards. I don't need all these people around me all the time. Like, just give me some space and like let me roam. And he gets so mad at this. So maybe not mad, but like frustrated or like exasperated by this. This like power like surges out of him and ends up like singeing the entire study that they're in. Like completely blasts the room away. But she's fine. She's in this like little bubble, and there's this like physical shield around her where she didn't get hurt and she's totally okay. And she thought that Tamlin did it, that he got so frustrated, but he protected her. This was like an internal thing. This is one of her superpowers, is this shield. And he can't get through it. And so he begins apologizing. He's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. You know, this anger, you know, blah, blah, blah. And begging for forgiveness. She forgives him. The shield comes down. And he's like, okay, like fine. I'll reduce the guard and I'll let you take the horse through the woods. Like, you can go riding through the woods as long as you have somebody with you. She's like, okay, fine. Time passes. Tamlin is gone constantly for more and more stuff that he's vague about because he doesn't want to tell her, because he doesn't want her to get involved. He doesn't want her getting hurt. So yeah, sure, there's a little bit less guards, and yeah, sure, she can go into the woods, I guess, but her husband's gone. Or like would-be husband, fiance, whatever you want to call him, right? They never did actually get married. That did not ever, like, they didn't follow through with it when she got back from the night court. And so she's just passing time reading, and trying to get better at reading, and then practicing her mental shielding and whatnot. One of the days she wakes up and Rysand has come back for her. Tamlin's arguing, you know, he's like begging. He's like, I'll do anything you want. Just break this bargain. This is so stupid. I can't believe that you would do this. And Rysand refuses, grabs her hand, and they disappear. And he takes her back to the night court for her like 1 week, a month stint there. He takes her away. They show up at the night court. He says he's worried about her. He's like, hey, dude, literally, you are so skinny right now. You are like withering away. You look depressed. This is horrible. Like, is he not acknowledging this? Is he not seeing you literally dying in front of him right now? Like, this is horrific. She's like, I'm fine. And he's like, no, you're not. He's like, you've been working on your mental shield, so I can't feel anything from you, which is kind of concerning also. But also, the only time that I do feel anything is when you guys fight. And, you know, I had this like crazy burst of emotion when Tamlin blew up the study the other day. He didn't know, well, maybe he did. I think she kind of communicated it down the bond indirectly. And he's like, you know, I'm worried about you. She's like, no, leave me alone. He disappears for the whole week, going and doing whatever Rysand's do. And she spends the week, again, just reading and hanging out. And then at the end of it, he says, hey, I'm not your enemy. I'll do whatever I can do to try to help you to get past this and, you know, get you to kind of like accept this like new life of yours. She's like, no. I don't want you to teach me how to use these powers. I don't want any of this stuff from you. Like, just leave me alone. And let me go back to Tamlin. So he does. Brings her back home, and Tamlin, you know, he's like cherishing her, and he's like, I'm so sorry, you know, we'll figure out a way to end this. Again, so repetitive. In chapter 12, Tamlin and Lucien continue to fight these crazy unnamed threats, right? Because they're keeping all of these secrets from her about what they're doing. But they're off gallivanting. I don't know. One of the days, she sees Lucien. He has red hair. So did Amarantha. This reminded of her. She starts to spiral a little bit, and all of a sudden she has claws. Like her fingernails turn into claws. Lucien sees this. Tamlin does not, but Lucien clocks it, and then he like kind of pulls her away to this like little secret side hallway thing, and he says, hey, I'll help you talk Tamlin into being able to use your powers, okay? Like, I'll talk him into training you, because we have to do something. Otherwise, they're just going to keep randomly coming up at these like terrible times, and somebody's going to find out regardless. So it's probably a good idea if we get you trained. She's like, thank you. That's literally all I want. Like, I need to be able to do something. That evening, she hears Tamlin, Lucien, and Iantha, however I said it earlier, sorry, the high priestess lady, arguing about this. Because, again, they're going back to the whole fact. If the High Lords know her about this, they're going to kidnap her or kill her, and it's not going to be good. And Iantha is like, okay, well, Rysand, if he comes, like, he could just take her and keep her permanently. So, like, I think we should just, like, assassinate him, you know? Like, I know some people, we can make some stuff happen, and we can just kill the guy. Tamlin says, no, we can't do that. I don't want to start any wars. And then Lucien brings up the whole fact about, well, just let her use her powers. Then she could defend herself if the kings ever came. And Tamlin, again, refuses. He says, like, no, she is not going to be trained on these. This obviously absolutely crushes her, like, breaks her heart that he is so unwilling to do this. So the following day, when she hears Tamlin and Lucien talking about going on this adventure again to go and deal with this concern that they have over on one of the border areas, she begs Tamlin, like, please, like, let me come with you. Like, just let me come and see it. Like, I'll stay away, I'll whatever, good distance, but, like, let me come with you. Says no. And she's like, well, I'll follow you no matter what. Like, I need to get out of here. Like, you can't stop me. And he does. He does stop her by creating, like, an invisible shield, like, barrier thing around the house. So she is trapped. And she spirals. This is the worst thing that he ever could have done to her. For as claustrophobic as she was after being kept in that cell, after being stuck under the mountain, after all of this, right? She has been so claustrophobic in general, which is part of the whole reason of her not wanting to be in the castle and, like, wanting to be out and about and doing things. And so now that he has actually trapped her and she is actually genuinely locked in this castle, she freaks the fuck out, like, spiraling, right? Lucien and Tamlin disappeared, so they're not witnessing this spiral, because, like, she didn't believe it at first, right? Because she felt it, like, outside of the castle, and then she went in, and then it was on all of the windows and everywhere. And so she ends up freaking out. She's trying to, like, hone her powers to get through the barrier, ends up, like, becoming this, like, mass scary ball of power and shadows and anger and everything, and so nobody can, like, access her or get to her. And then all of a sudden she feels arms carrying her, and she realizes that she's, like, pressed up against a woman's body. She realizes that it's Morrigan, Rysand's cousin, and Morrigan is talking to a niece who is Feyre's, you know, servant at the spring court. And she's like, I don't know, she just freaked out and she started all this power thing, and just, like, take care of her, please. Like, just make sure she'll be okay. Morrigan promises that she'll be safe and she'll be fine and she'll be in a better place than being stuck here. And then disappears with Feyre to the night court, where she's still, like, in and out of it, falling into the darkness, but she hears Rysand's voice. And when she wakes up in chapter 13, he comforts her and he's like, hey, Morrigan had to go and pick you up at the manor because by, like, law and protocol and fairy rules and whatever, if I would have gone there and taken you, it would have been, like, a start of a war, an act of war or whatever. So she had to go and do it. And she also, like, I don't know, scrambled their brains, or Feyre's stuff ended up, like, hurting a bunch of people. There was, like, a whole thing. I don't really know. It wasn't explained very, very well. But they did it by the rules, or by the book, Morrigan to be able to kidnap her and not start a war. And so Rysand is like, hey, dude, That was super uncool. I felt it down the bond. I know that was traumatic for you. Like, that's entirely unacceptable what he did. You can stay here at the night court, and you can stay here for as long as you want. And she accepts it because she's realizing how much Tamlin was like overprotective of her, and that it was like ruining her life. And it was the worst thing that he could have done. And that this, again, had crossed this like crazy boundary of hers that she never thought possible. And it like literally like broke her for a little bit there. Now she's also kind of like taking a new list of her powers, right? She's got the claws, which I guess is like darkness stuff. And then she was in this like little dark ball when Morrigan got her. She showed some ice powers at one point when she got angry, and then the whole shield thing. So there's all sorts of stuff. This list is growing. When Rysand says that he has to leave because he has to go and do some business stuff, she asks to come along, practically begging, which takes a lot out of her because she's begging Rysand, and just in general having to ask again and getting turned down would break her heart. And also just asking for anything is really difficult for her. And so she goes out on a limb and she says, hey, can I come with you? And he says, yes, of course you can come, but if you come with me, you cannot tell anyone about what you see here. Like, where I'm about to take you, you cannot tell a single soul. And she says that she won't. And he takes her to Valaris, the city of starlight. And so they end up being teleported to the city. And she was expecting it to be in ruins because literally all of the other towns across like Perithian, like the continent, have been destroyed. But instead, they get teleported into this like absolutely gorgeous, modern, fancy, whatever you want to call it, townhouse. This city has survived the war. This city has been kept a secret to the rest of the continent for over 5,000 years. It never got attacked. Nobody knows that it existed. Amarantha had no idea it existed. King Hybern has no idea that it exists. Nobody. It's literally just the people here. And if anybody leaves, they do the whole like mental shielding, mind melding, crazy stuff to make them forget about it. So it's crazy. So this is just this like secret like sanctuary basically that's up in the very like, I think like the northern side. And then the one that everyone does know about, Hewn City, right, the under the mountain one, is like in the middle. And that's the only one that anybody's ever like gone to or known of or whatever. Also goes on to say about how the people who live in the city are Fae, but some of them are also Illyrian, and Illyrian is a race of winged fairies. So I guess there's like I don't know, there's a whole bunch of different Fae, there's a whole bunch of different stuff, but the Illyrians are the winged ones. Rysand is half of like a high Fae and half an Illyrian. So he has wings as well. He like hides them a lot of the time, but he does have wings. And then we'll meet some more people in a little bit that are Illyrian. She goes up to her room, and two of Rysand's people who were under the mountain, like helping her and would like paint her every night and like wash her and bathe her and get her ready for the whole parties and stuff every night, they're here, and they help her now get ready for this night and get her like situated and whatnot. They're really nice to her, kind of friendly, they kind of sort of know each other, even though they never really talked or anything, but at least it's familiar faces. And she asks them how Rysand kept this a secret for so many years, like especially from Amarantha. Like, how did you manage to do that? Or how did he manage to do that, rather? And they say that it's Rysand's story to tell. She's like, did he tell you not to tell me? Is he trying to keep secrets? And they're like, no. Like, he never said such a thing. We're just saying, like, it would be better coming from his mouth. It's not really, like, our story to tell. Like, no, you weirdo. You're being really aggressive about this. They don't say that, but that's the vibe I felt. And she's allowed to roam the city. Like, complete free reign. He's like, you're safe here. Literally, again, nobody knows that this is here. Everybody, it has a bunch of the like wards and like protections around it that only like people with like good intention or goodwill or whatever are allowed into the city. And so he's like, you're fine. Just do whatever you want. I don't really care. He ends up joining her for the first walk about it, though, and she sees that it's lined up against the sea, and he points off to one of the cliffs and reveals that that is his second home. It's called the House of Wind. Does it matter? Not necessarily. We go there a lot, but the name doesn't really matter for this book. She talks crap to him on their walk about how he didn't open up this city to people to come to, like as a like refuge for people, or like how he didn't open up the walls or the knowledge of the city to like refugees from Amarantha's wrath. And he ignores her, ends up walking her to the artists' quarter, where obviously there's all the artists and paintings and beautiful stuff around, and galleries and theaters, and it's beautiful. And it reminds her so much of her human life, but this is all so frustrating to her to see these people living happily. And keeping in mind too, right? So she came from a really, really poor, at least poor area, poor village. Her dad had money, like her family had money when she was younger, but they lost all of it and ended up destitute when she was like 8 years old. And she was never old enough to travel with her dad to like the big cities. So this is the first time that she's seen anything this nice. This is the first time that she's seen like an art gallery. And the fact that these people are here and they're happy and they're also casual about it pisses her off to like absolutely no end. And she just gets so angry about how oblivious they are. Like none of these people know about the suffering happening everywhere else in the world, and super, super angry. And Rysand interrupts these angry thoughts and he says, hey, like my people are blameless. They had nothing to do with keeping the city a secret. They had nothing to do with Amarantha. Like they don't deserve your ire. He goes on to explain his inner circle. His inner circle were the ones who stayed in Valaris to keep it running, right? Like he had like, that's like his court basically. And his cousin Morrigan, right? She's basically his third in command. His second in command is a woman named Amrin, who is this like powerful beast monster entity thing that is just happens to be in human fae form. And then the people that I briefly mentioned before, Cassian and Azriel, who are his like warriors, right? Those are all of the names that are going to get introduced, I promise, okay? I think that's every character. I don't think we get any more characters in this book. He tells her about his inner circle, and then he takes her up to the House of Wind to go and meet them. Because he's like, if you are going to take refuge here, if you are going to stay in Valaris and make the decision to stay here at the Night Court, you should probably know who operates it and like what you're getting yourself into by staying here. Before they go inside, she's just taking in the view of it. And it's gorgeous. It's like up on the cliffside. It's overlooking the city and the ocean. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful view. And she ends up opening up to Rysand. And she says, I think I might have only loved Tamlin or been happy with Tamlin because he was the first person to show me love. And like an escape from my crappy living situation at the time. And like he showed me like a good life. He was giving me a good life and attention and love. And I think I confused that for being more than what it was. Because obviously that's not who he is or whatever based on his current actions. Rysand just kind of looks at her, and then they get interrupted by his inner circle and they go inside to go and meet them. I think the only like other thing to note is that he tells her it's even more important than ever to work on her mental shields to make sure that nobody else can get into her brain and like figure out all of her secrets and stuff, right? Because that's Rysand's power, is he can go into people's minds and figure out all of their memories and all of their things. And he's not the only one with that power. There's like a handful of them. It's rare, but there is a handful of them across the continent. And so if she's ever in a situation where there's one of them around and they try to get into her brain, she needs to be able to stop it and stop people from finding out about Valaris. So she says, okay, got it. I'll continue to work on my mental shielding. I don't think mental shielding comes up in this freaking book a single time other than this. I don't think him emphasizing her mental shields comes up in this book. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. And like throughout this, he has like reassured her constantly and repeatedly about like, I'm on your side. I'm on your team. And I haven't read you any quotes because it's kind of frustrating. And I want to kind of tell you the facts and not be like biased or get you to drink the Rysand aid, like the Kool-Aid of this all. But I will tell you this, right? So he goes to take her up to the House of Wind. He's about to. And he says, you say the word tonight and we come back here, no questions asked. And if you can't stomach working with them, then no questions asked on that either. We can find some other way for you to live here, be fulfilled, regardless of what I need. It's your choice, Feyre. And everything that he says and everything he does, always has this like underlying thing of like, it's your choice, Feyre. Like, I'm here to support you. I'm here to make your life, easier and better in any way that I can. And they teleport up there. It's beautiful, and she's like looking over this beauty, and maybe it was some shred of courage or recklessness, or I was so high above everything that no one save Rysand and the wind could hear. But I said, I'm thinking that I must have been a fool in love to allow myself to be shown so little of the spring court. I'm thinking there's a great deal of that territory that I was never allowed to see or hear about, and maybe I would have lived in ignorance forever like some pet. I'm thinking. The words became choked. I shook my head as if I could clear the remaining ones away, but I still spoke them. I'm thinking that I was a lonely, hopeless person, and I might have fallen in love with the first thing that showed me a hint of kindness and safety. And I'm thinking that maybe he knew that. Maybe not actively, but maybe he wanted to be that person for someone. And maybe that worked for who I was before. Maybe it doesn't work for who I am now. There, the words, hateful and selfish and ungrateful for all Tamlin had done. The thought of his name clanged through me. Only yesterday afternoon I had been there. No, I wouldn't think about it, not yet. Rysand said, that was 5. Looks like I owe you 2 thoughts. Because he was like, give me a thought for a thought, and he was giving her, I don't know, thoughts and feedback on some other stuff. And he said later, because 2 winged males from earlier were standing in the doorway grinning. Because they were eavesdropping. And we go into chapter 16, and we are introduced to his whole clan, the whole inner circle. Amren, when being introduced to her, says, so there are 2 of us now. We who were born something else and found ourselves in some new, and found ourselves trapped in new, strange bodies. And she goes on to tell her also that only once before was a human made into an immortal. Interesting that it should happen again, right as all the ancient players have returned. We go on to meet everybody. Honestly, Cassian and Azriel are the best characters in the book. I think they're interesting and their dynamic is great. They're basically brothers. Like Rysand, Cassian, and Azriel ended up all going to these same like war training camps together, or like warrior training camps together, and grew up that way, and ended up defeating this like crazy blood rite, I think is what it was called, where they had to like fight for 3 days up this mountain and kill off all these other people to survive. And they ended up proving their worth, super strong, super whatever. So they're brothers in the way, they're brothers in the way that all bastards are brothers, is the way that Rysand describes it, which I honestly like loved that description. But yeah, so the 3 of them, thick as thieves, whatever. His cousin, we'll talk about later, and how she kind of ties into things. And then, like we mentioned, Amren, who's the super powerful other being that's trapped in Fae form, who is like older than old. She's like one of the like original beast monster things. And her and Rysand are buddies. So they go on talking. She gets greeted by everybody. They have dinner. It's kind of like a gossipy little ketchup-y sesh about everything. And the thing to note is that, yeah, Alarians are considered lesser than High Fae. And so, yeah, they have this court, and yeah, they're all in this together, but technically none of them are, they don't have like official titles. Like, this is all kind of like a random, it really is just like his inner circle group of friends that's running this place. It's not like a casual court setup like all the other places have. And Alarians are incredible fighters, but they're also very, very cruel, particularly to women. They will clip women's wings so that they cannot fly and they cannot escape, and they're like reliant on the husbands and like maintaining, I don't know, traditional like gender norms in terms of like human beings. So they would clip women's wings. This happened to Rysand's mom, but then the dad saved her because he realized that they had a mating bond. His dad was the previous king of the Night Court, and so he went to one of these like training camp things, or to one of the villages with the Alarians, and had seen Rysand's mother and then had saved her. I don't know. It's a whole thing, but that's why he's half Alarian. That's why he's half Alarian. And ultimately, by the end of this night, she accepts Rysand's offer to be a part of the night court, to be a part of his inner circle, basically. And yeah, these people are all great. She loves their stories. They're, fighting hardships together. She finds a lot that she relates to with Morrigan, and they all just hit it off. And this is a whole found family. This entire book is a found family book, which I think is also a reason that a lot of people really, really enjoyed it, because there's a lot of dynamics outside of the actual like relationship here. A lot of it is like, I don't know, it's a lot of world building and just other stuff going on that I think people liked a lot, or would cause people to like this book a lot. So she accepts his offer, and he says great, because King Hybern is going to break down that wall, and he's using a bunch of this crazy magic because he's going to resurrect Jurian. And if you're like, who in the hell is Jurian? I'm so glad you asked. He was the guy from the previous book that Amarantha, she wore on her necklace, his like femur and his eyeball as a ring, and kept him there for years and years and years. King Hybern, for whatever reason, he is going to be resurrecting Jurian. At the very end of that book, it also got revealed, like at the very end of the previous book, it also got revealed that those items of Amarantha's went missing, and we didn't know why. And it was the adder, which was like the bat-like fae evil thing that was like Amarantha's little right-hand monster thing, took them and ran away, and he went back to King Hybern. So he had Jurian's body parts and went and did this, and they're going to try to resurrect him, I guess, because he was kept alive. If you remember, he was like, still alive and like witnessing everything that she did. And him wanting to resurrect Jurian has to do with that attack on the temple that we learned about forever ago. And so to counteract this and to figure out what's going on and figure out what to do next, and like, how do we fight all of this? Like, how do we figure this out? We have to go to this like super ancient prison and talk to this other ancient scary monster beast creature thing called the Bone Carver, which is a horrifying name for a being. And so Rysand and Feyre are going to set off to the Bone Carver. With that, they go back to his townhouse in the city. In this townhouse, she and Rysand are the only ones who can like teleport into it, and nobody else can come in unless they're invited. Like even his inner circle people can't just like waltz into his townhouse. He has to allow it, right? So it's just the two of them. They go back home and they have a bit of a conversation, right? Because she's like, so what was the cost, right? She finally asks him. She tried to ask the two women the other night, but now she asks him direct. What was the cost to keep this place safe, to keep it secret and free? And he says, you know the cost already. Amarantha's whore. He nodded, and I think I might have said those two vile words aloud. And he goes on to explain, when she tricked me out of my powers and left the scraps, it was still more than the others, and I decided to use it to tap into the mind of every night court citizen she captured and anyone who might know the truth. I made a web between all of them, actively controlling their minds, every second of every day, every decade, to forget about Valaris and to forget about Mor and Amaran and Cassian and Azriel. Amarantha wanted to know who was close to me, who to kill and torture, but my true court was here, ruling this city and the others. And I used the remainder of my power to shield them all from sight and sound. I had only enough for one city, one place. I chose the one that had already been hidden from history already. I chose, and now I must live with the consequences of knowing there were more left outside who suffered. But for those here, anyone flying or traveling near Valaris would see nothing but barren rock, and if they tried to walk through it, they would find themselves suddenly deciding otherwise. Sea travel and merchant trading were halted, sailors became farmers, working the earth around Valaris instead, and because my powers were focused on shielding them all, I had very little to use against Amarantha, so I decided that to keep her from asking questions about the people who mattered, I would be her whore. And this conversation will, and I kid you not, almost identically happen 3 more times in this book. And that's what I'm talking about, of like, this has no business being 630 pages long, but that's fine, I guess. And so this is his walls coming down, and we're learning like, oh, so maybe he wasn't a total monster that he's painted out to be. All of this is like a facade. right? He had to play up this like super scary ruler guy so nobody would bother him. So nobody would know about all of these secret places. And he had to be this like monster to the world, and so people would fear him. But also to make note, he's like the strongest fairy that has ever lived, because of course he freaking is, right? Like literally and publicly, openly, very acknowledged that he's like the strongest like guy ever. But this is like the beginning of humanizing him and learning all of his motives, and that he's, you know, this like really deep, complex character, and maybe he did all of this out of the goodness of his heart, and he's not just this monster D-bag guy. That night, she has a nightmare, and Rysand wakes her up, like gets her out of it, and she looks around, and she has like shredded and burned a lot of the stuff around her, because she also has fire powers, which is a power from the Autumn Court, or the king of the Autumn Court. And yeah, she also has fire. So we're just, again, adding more and more to the list of what this woman can do. Turns out it's literally everything, because she's super overpowered, like I said. And the next morning, he teleports them outside of this mountain, and they're going to go down into this prison. She did not realize, or maybe she did, but she didn't realize how she would react to it, that the prison is under the mountain, and the idea of going back under that absolutely horrifies her, and she can't do it. So she says as much. They teleport home, no questions asked, no issue at all. We'll figure it out. They go back home. The next day, Feyre is not confronted, but like Amarin comes to her, and she says, hey, here is this amulet, this super cool protective amulet piece of jewelry. I'm going to give this to you. This is what I wore. This is what like made me strong. And this is what helped me get out of the prison, because Amarin had broken out of it. She used to be in there. She got out, turned into a fae. Gives it to her. Feyre is like, oh my God, thank you so much. This is so awesome. And they try again, and it works. They are able to go down it. You know, Feyre, she collects her courage. They go down, and she can sense like all of these evil creatures that are around and how horrifying all of this stuff is. But she can do it. You know, she makes it the whole way down. And they eventually get to the bone carver, and he like presents himself as different things. And so Feyre, when she looks at him, he is this 8-year-old little boy, which is like kind of weird. She's looking at him, and then he's talking, and he says he won't give any information unless like she answers his questions. Similar to earlier, it's like a question for a question or an answer for an answer. She goes on to explain to him, because he's very curious about death, right? These are immortal beings, and he's never known anybody to come back from death. Like Feyre is this like exception to everything. And so he wants to know what death was like. She was like, I didn't really see anything. You know, it was darkness, but it was illuminated by this like gold, like thread of light. And she's like, I think it was the bargain, you know, between Rysand and I. And so I saw this gold of light, and I followed it home. It felt like home. Okay, cool. So then she asks him if a person can be resurrected from like a single bone and a preserved soul. And he says, yeah, if you have the cauldron, which is this like super ancient magical thing. I think it's cauldron, super strong thing, but it got broken up into multiple pieces, and like around different temples around the world, to prevent people from putting it back together and having this really strong piece of magic, or like ability to like wield this magic. But if somebody went around and found all the pieces, they could get the cauldron to work. The King of Hybern already has the main part of it, and that's why they broke into the temple, like earlier in the book that we talked about, that Cassian and Azrael had to go and deal with, and Rysand was gone for a week to go and deal with as well, because they attacked the temple to get the cauldron, or part of the cauldron anyway. And if he gets all of the pieces to it and gets this like reactivated, they're going to be able to use it. The King Hybern would be able to have the power to take down the wall and destroy the wall that's separating the humans and the Fae. And there is the only way to really negate the power of the cauldron is through this book, the Book of Breathings, and it was torn in half, separated into 2 pieces, and one was given to the Fae and one was given to the mortal queens, and no human or Fae can wield it. But the Bone Carver says, you know, Feyre, you're not a human or a Fae, technically you're both. So yeah, in theory, if you got the book and you put the two parts of it together, you might be able to cast the spell to negate the power of the cauldron and save the people and save the war or stop it before it happens and yada, 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 okay? The mortal half of the book, like the one that the human queens have, you can't take it. It has to be given freely, or I think it like self-destructs or something. So they have to be in on it and agreeing to this whole situation. So that becomes a whole thing, and Rysand and Feyre leave the prison, and that's the plan. I guess we gotta go get the parts of this book. We gotta try to stop the king before any of this can actually happen. First half of the book is with the Fae, right? And it's in the summer court. We haven't really talked about the summer court too terribly much, but that's where the book is. And so Azriel is going to get his spies to try to figure out where the book is in the summer court so they can go and retrieve it. And in the meantime, they're putting together a plan of how they're going to break into King Hybern's castle to maybe steal the cauldron. If we can't nullify it with this book, maybe we can just steal the cauldron itself. So let's try to figure that out of how we would get in there and how we would do any of this. And in order to do so, Feyre, we need to test some of your abilities. We need to continue working on your mental shields, and we need to see if you can like channel your powers internally and like track something down, right? Like if you sit there and you like channel the magic within you, can you find an object? I don't know. How are we going to test this? Right? So they're going to go on a little adventure to go and like test her abilities to track down magical items. And also, while they work on these skills and while Azriel is trying to find the whole summer court book, in regard to the human book, Rysand says, hey, how about for your official position on my court, you be my like emissary, my liaison, my like go-to person to like talk to the humans. You be the emissary for the humans on the night court. So like work for me and you're going to be the representative for these people. She agrees to it because she wants to save humanity, right? Awesome. We got all this established. We got a game plan. The way that they're going to test her ability to get and track a magical object is they're going to this really crazy, scary Fae's house and who lives in the woods. She's named the Weaver. She's like a hoarder. She has a whole bunch of these items, like magical items, and she's blind. And so Feyre is going to have to go in there, sneak in, use her sensing abilities. Rysand gives her a task. He's like, hey, there's a ring in there that I want. It's like really valuable to me. It's my mom's old ring. And Feyre's like, oh my God, your mom. Yeah, you loved her. Yeah, I can get it for you. And he can't go in and get it because it would be a violation of whatever Fae laws, weird stuff that they have. So she is going to have to be super, super sneaky to go into this woman's house and use her magical abilities to try to stay hidden and feel Rysand's magic, because his magic should be lingering on this ring or like infused with this ring in some way. And so it ends up being this like really high stakes, tense moment where she breaks into this woman's house and finds the ring. She's able to do it. She's able to lock on to that magic within her and get the sense and find the ring. The woman ends up hearing her toward the end, locks her in the house. She barely escapes. She has to like crawl through the freaking chimney. It's a whole thing, okay? She does it, right? She passes. Barely escapes. Eventually runs out, finds Rysand. He was like sitting in a tree watching her struggle because he's like, I couldn't help. Sorry, I couldn't do anything about it. I had to test your powers. Again, he's still kind of being mean and like rude to her in some ways. And this is the part that I'll highlight that you might reflect on later. So I just want you to hear it now. This is the part where people started kind of having problems with Rysand and the way that he's treating her, because she's agreed to be a part of the night court. She's agreed to do a lot of these things. She's obviously helping out. She's proved her strength by finding this item. And he will continue for a couple while more in the book to like be rude to her in a way that a lot of people had problems with. And so I just want you to acknowledge it now, okay? Or I want you to be like aware of it going forward. That this is about the point where people were like, ugh, I started to feel for him, but now I'm going back to this whole ugh thing, right? They teleport home, The inner circle are there, and they see that she passed this test and she got this ring, and that's awesome. You know, great. She can channel these powers, she can focus, and she can track down these items. But Cassian, being like the army general leader guy, wants to train her in combat so that she has other options, right? Rysand eventually like will train her powers, but I also want her to be good at like hand-to-hand combat and like weaponry use and that sort of thing. So he wants to improve combat. Rysand wants to improve her powers. One of the powers being the whole like mind thing. So she can do mind shielding, but she can also go into other people's minds like he can. Like that's the power beyond just like shadowy stuff that she inherited from him. She also inherited the ability to like go into people's brains. And so he wants her to practice that. And so as like a way to get her to do it, he says, you know, I might have some information about these high priestesses. I might know some stuff about Ianthe if you want to go through my brain and see what you can find. And she does. And she ends up reliving this memory of Ianthe trying to seduce him and saying that they should get married and like partner together because then they would be like really, really powerful. And he says no, and she threatens him and says some other like really nasty things to her, and he ends up breaking her hand. And Feyre comes out of this memory and she's like, you know, she's a monster. She's a power-hungry monster, and I knew there was always something off about her. I don't know. It's really weird. It's a really, really weird thing. Hi, guys. Sorry for the dramatic change. I am on like an emergency work trip, we'll call it. So last second, I ended up having to travel a bunch this weekend. And so I have to finish this review in this random-ass hotel room. So we're back to horizontal Kaylee because I'm freaking exhausted. I traveled all day yesterday, and then obviously I had my stuff going on today for like a 10-hour day, so I'm just ready to talk about this book. Yeah, so we're going into chapter 22, and now that they are half prepped for getting the Fae book, right, now that she's like kind of trained for the most part of like tracking it down, and they're just waiting to hear more about the summer court and like how they're gonna go and get it, they decide to prep to try to get the human half of the book, right? And so they do this by going to her house. The plan is they're gonna go to Feyre's home and talk her sisters into letting them host the queens out of that house. Does that make sense? Like if they're going to do this whole like emissary thing, they're just going to do it there. And so obviously the sisters are pretty against this. Elaine is not. Elaine is very, very supportive. Nesta is incredibly against this. She's like, don't get us involved in your shit. Like this sounds like a mess. And Elaine is betrothed. Is that how you say it? She's engaged to a guy who his family hates the Fae, and he has a lot of money, and so it would be a great wedding opportunity, and she loves him, and if he finds out that he's helping the Fae in any way, it would ruin the relationship. And so Nesta's concerned about that also, and she's like, just leave us alone, and blah, blah, blah. But Elaine talks her into it, so they kick all of the servants and the house people in general out, and then Feyre goes inside, and then she has Azriel, Cassian, and Rysand join them. They introduce it, they get them up to speed on everything that's going on, talk them into it. There's a lot of tension between everybody because Cassian and Azriel don't like the way, and obviously Rysand, don't like the way that the sisters are so ungrateful for everything that Feyre has done. They're like, you don't appreciate it. She literally, like, she saved the world. She did everything she could to support you guys growing up, and you're just like, blah, 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 blah. Just, like, bickering back and forth and just, like, really frustrated. And there's obviously, there's something between Nesta and Cassian that will, like, be throughout this entire book. And so after this like dramatic back and forth, they end up staying the night, and Azriel and Cassian are in their own room, and then Feyre and Rysand are in a room together, and they have a little chit chat. They talk about how Rysand is paying her like monthly salary, like everybody on his inner circle gets paid this, and so she can buy and do whatever she wants. And again, he is just so emphasizing like her freedom to do whatever and his like support of anything that she wants to do. And then he also asks about her birthday, because her birthday is on the winter solstice, and they're going to try to do something for it, I guess. And then he privately expresses his, anger and stuff against her sisters for treating her poorly growing up. And so he's just this little supportive guy. The next morning, before they fly home, they decide to do some training and work on the training. So Rysand and Feyre go out into the woods, and he is having her work on setting some stuff on fire. Like, he gives her a candle, and he's like, light the candle and then control water and put it out. But she doesn't want him to watch her because she doesn't, she's got a little performance anxiety. And so she tells him to go away. And he does. And then they have this thing that they go back and forth doing for the rest of the book, where they'll write letters to each other, and then the paper will disappear and go to the other one, and then they'll write back and forth, and they are just flirting, basically. They're sexting almost, but old school style, but also magically, you know what I'm saying. They are doing this, and she gets so distracted flirting with Rysand that she does not hear an adder, right, the bat, crazy scary monster thing, come up and start to attack her. Luckily for her, Rysand appears immediately and kicks the adder's butt, and he's basically torturing the thing, and he's like, why are you here? I know King Hybern sent you, what does he want? Why are you here? Blah blah blah. Adder has no idea. He's like, I just got told to get the girl. I don't know. I don't know what he wants with her, I swear. And then Azriel disappears he appears, and then he takes the adder and disappears, because they're gonna go and I guess torture and hurt the thing even more to send the message of, and I quote, if they want to hunt the members of my court, they'll have to do better than that. And then Rysand goes on to reveal that he had figured out that Feyre was being hunted, or he assumed it or something. And so he left her alone in the woods on purpose as bait. So obviously she's very pissed off at this, and she's like, you can't have me be bait, that's so messed up. And she's understandably upset by this. And she goes to try to get him, and he winnows away, and then she, for the first time, winnows or teleports in front of him. Then she does it one more time when he tries to get away and be all sneaky and stuff, but they have unlocked a new power. When she winnows in front of him, she ends up being able to tackle him. She says, don't, I snarled into his face, ever. I push his rock hard shoulders, talons curving at my fingertips. Use me as bait again. He stopped laughing. I pushed harder, those nails digging through his leather. You said I could be a weapon. Teach me to become one. Don't use me like a pawn. And if being one is part of my work for you, then I'm done. Done. And he says, fair enough. And then they go on to continue practicing and training and working on her superpowers, I guess. They're not superpowers, but you know what I'm saying. I don't have a better word for it. Nesta and Elaine have drafted a letter that they're going to send to the mortal queens, requesting them to come to their house to talk about all of this stuff. And so while they wait for a response, this has to go get delivered. They'll have to, figure life out. The queens will have to decide what they're going to do. Rysand, Cassian, Azriel, and Feyre. There's so many people, bro. They go back to the city, back to Valaris. When they get back there, they're getting Amren caught up on everything, and Feyre wants to know what the adder said, and they're a little hesitant to tell her because it was pretty gruesome, but she's like, I want to know, I'm fine, I can handle it. So they tell her everything that happened, and they show her, they do the little mind sharing thing so she can be in the moment and experience Azriel hurting this creature so badly. And the information that they find out is that everyone is under the impression that Rysand stole Feyre from Tamlin. And so she decides, okay, well, I'll just write a letter to Tamlin, and I'll tell him that I'm safe and happy and thank you, but I don't need your protection anymore, and we'll get that sent off, and then, maybe this will assuage. Why was that the word that I came up with? This will soothe his fears, and maybe he'll lay off and stop telling people that, They go on a little cutie patootie dinner date that night, and on the way she returns that amulet that Amren gave her, the one that gave her protection to get in and out of the prison and stuff. And Amren tells her, There's no superpowers. That was just a necklace. I knew you could do it. Placebo effect, I guess. And then they go on their date and the inner circle joins, and so it's all of them, and this is another like found family type chapter. Like I said, that the found family aspects of it and experiences and relationship building and exploration and the backstories for these 4 new characters that get introduced and how their stories are all intertwined is why this book is as long as it is. And I think, again, I'm just reiterating my points from earlier, I think that's why people enjoy it so much, is because there's so much more substance than just like a love story. In chapter 30, Cassian is training Feyre on the hand-to-hand combat stuff, and she ends up having a breakthrough because of all this stuff with Tamlin going on. She realizes how angry she is at him, and then she's like going through all these emotions and like quite literally working it out to the point that she ends up like raging. She channels her like fire powers as she's like beating up the like sparring pads, burns through them entirely, and then all of a sudden Rysand is there in front of her, and then Cassian and Azriel are doing something off to the side. So Rysand's here with her, and he's like, hey, what's up? What's going on? Lots of big feelings here. What's happening? And she finally like comes to terms and is able to say it out loud that she just feels guilty, that it should have been her under the mountain. Like she's the one that should have died and not the Fae that she killed. And so Rysand is like, hey, you've got to like accept what you did and to move on from this. Like you can't just like wallow. And so then he tries coaching her for her powers, trying to like distract her and get her to like use these emotions and use this like power kind of surging through her for good, I guess, good-ish. And so he tries to channel her powers, and he's like, okay, like think of darkness or like the dark powers. And she's like, every time I think of darkness, I think of, you know, the prison cell, and it's bad. And so then he wraps them in darkness, and it's like glittery starlight darkness. Yeah. Again, it's just more stuff about like how wonderful he is. The Summer Court, which is where the book is stored and Azriel has had his spies at and stuff, they still haven't gotten any word on the book. They're like no further on it at all. And so they decide that Rysand, Feyre, and Amren are going to travel to the Summer Court. And Amren is coming because she's going to be a little like the intimidating scariness, obviously Rysand. And then Feyre is coming as the one who is going to be able to search for the book, right? The same way that she found Rysand's ring, they're going to use that same power to try to, I don't know, track the linkage or something to be able to find the book. But they're kind of worried about bringing her here because she would be there on like official night court business, and the Summer Court is right next to the Spring Court. Like I said, usually it's like the not autumnal, seasonal courts are all kind of like together, and then the temporal courts are kind of doing their own thing on the other half of the continent, and it's kind of like divided a little bit. And so to be going to the Summer Court that has a really good relationship with the Spring Court, it's a little sketchy. You're bringing back the dude's kidnapped fiance, you know, like what? I don't know. It's just sketchy, right? This whole situation is. But they teleport there. They get greeted by the king of the Summer Court. He's a young guy as well. He has not been in charge for very long. Very similar kind of situation with Rysand and Tamlin, where he's like new to power and just trying to figure it all out and like play the court games and stuff. And then like speaking of court games, the next like, I don't know, 5 chapters probably 6 chapters. I'm just going to summarize for you really freaking quickly because it was very frustrating to me and it just felt like it dragged on forever. They're in the Summer Court. They're schmoozing, right? Rysand is straight up flirting, and this is also like kind of effed up because him and Feyre have kind of had like moments and stuff, and then he comes here and he's like blatantly flirting in front of her. And so she's like, oh, I guess it was nothing. I just got my hopes up for blah, 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 blah. And so he's flirting with the princess, and then Feyre, is flirting with the king and just trying to like get information over the next couple of days. And then Amren ends up like with some other guy. They kind of hit it off. It's I don't know. This stuff's happening. Long story short, the king of the summer court is genuinely a good guy who wants change and who wants things to be better for his people and just doesn't want to go to any wars, and he's very concerned about Feyre and the spring court situation, and he doesn't want to support Rysand if it's going to turn into a war with the spring court. And she goes on to say, hey, like, I was trapped at the spring court. Like, Rysand saved me from Tamlin, not the other way around. Like, was not a good situation in the spring court. And the Summer King says, okay, got it. I won't tell him what's going on then. Eventually, like a couple days into this, there is a dinner party and she's asking about different stuff. And she has not been able to find anything in the city, but she did notice on one of her walks that at low tide, there's a building out a little bit into the ocean that appears only at low tide. And so she asks about it, and then she can see the hesitation on the Summer King's face, and she uses her little mind reading powers to see that he's like suspicious of her. And so then she uses her mind melding powers to make him stop thinking about it and like move on. And then Rysand did the same thing with the other people in the room to make them just move on from it. And now she knows that there's something special about this weird building in the middle of the ocean. And if everybody got all sketched out about it, that must be a secret place. And it is an old temple. They did tell her that much. And then she asked like a follow-up question about it being a temple, and that's why they got suspicious. So anyway, they like erase all these memories of it, and then they decide that night, Amren and Feyre are going to go to the island thing and rob the place, basically, to go and find the book, because that's literally the only place left in the city that it could possibly be, because she has not gotten any vibes anywhere else of where the book would be. They're gonna go out there, be all sneaky about it, and then Rysand's gonna be their like sentinel. Is that the word? He's gonna go and fly around and like keep an eye out and like support them from up high if anything happens. Obviously, stuff happens. They get down there, it's really sketchy. It's a very, high risk, all or nothing moment with Amren and Feyre. They do find the book, and she, like Feyre, is channeling her powers and like lying to all of the wards on the temple of like, I am Tarquin, which is the Summer King's name, and she uses her like transformation abilities and like channeling his bit of magic that's in her to make the wards work and like unlock doors and stuff. But when she grabs the book knows and is like talking to her, and it's like, you liar. And then all the traps get set off, and Amren and Feyre get stuck in the temple as it begins filling with water, and it's a very, very sketchy moment. They almost drown in there, and then all of a sudden the door gets ripped open and they get saved by the water wraiths. They save them, and then they drop them off on the shore, and Amren and Feyre are like coughing their freaking lungs up. Oh, like I said, literally almost drowned, like almost died. And the wraiths are like, our sister's debt has been paid. And then they go swimming and disappear. Of course. Again, like, of course this all just so happens to work out so perfectly. They get saved. Rysand comes, talks shit to them. All of the alarms are like starting to go off, and so they have to teleport away immediately. They teleport to the townhouse. Morrigan, Azriel, and Cassian are there waiting for them, and Rysand, everybody's like, do you have the book? Do you have the book? And she pulls it out. Amren does, and then she's like, who was that? Like, who just saved us? How did that even happen? So Feyre's like, oh yeah, I helped them at the tithing and they owed me one, and it's just so crazy. And then the two of them just have a giggle fit over how close they just were to death. And then they start finally looking at the book, and she looks at it and Amren realizes that this is in like the mother tongue, is that what it's called? Or the holy tongue, sorry. And it is this like incredibly old language that only Amren knows, and she can't even make out half of it. And she would have to have the other half of the book to be able to like fully read it and decipher what all of these words mean and stuff. But this begins her like absolute deep dive into this book, and this will like consume Amren for the rest of the book, is like trying to figure out what this says. There's also discussion about Jurian, right? Again, we're only getting this book to counteract the power of the cauldron, because the cauldron will take down the wall. But also the king is doing this weird thing with Jurian and like not revitalizing, resurrecting him. And why would Jurian, the human guy who got killed by the Fae, want to now work with the Fae and be a part of his army? And they think it's because if Jurian can get resurrected, then he's probably working with the king so that he can get his lover resurrected. It's a whole like subplot, like probably like a C plot of a book that like I'm not going to tell you about because I don't know if it really matters or not. But that's why he's here. And also, technically, he would have so much information for King of Hybern, right? Because he had the 500 years on Amren's ring. He knew and saw every single thing that she did for those 500 years. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't turn off his brain. He was losing his mind, but he saw everything and has all this information. So would be like a very, very valuable asset to King Hybern, which I think is the real reason why he's getting resurrected, but I don't think that ever got said explicitly. And then I don't know if it's here or later that Feyre realizes, oh, this is why you wanted me to read. You wanted me to read because you knew about this book and you thought that I might be able to break this spell and stuff, right? Because Rysand has known all of this for a really long time, at least to some degree. He's just kind of played it dumb, or he was just seeking confirmation, like from the Bone Carver. He just needed all of this verified, but he anticipated that the day would come that Feyre would have to read this book to cast this spell to counteract the cauldron. And so she's like, oh, so you didn't want me to read out of like the goodness of your heart, or because I almost died under the mountain and you were trying to make sure I wouldn't have that happen to me again. You did this for your own like selfish motivations. And his response is, ¿Por qué no los dos? Like, why can't it be both? It just feels icky. It just feels icky. All of it just feels icky. But a king's got to do what a king's got to do, right? To save your people. It's just like, Rysand's not a good guy. He's a very conniving guy, but also, I don't know, this is where you end up with the whole, like, this is quite literally the definition of, like, a morally gray character, where he is doing, like, objectively crappy things, but for good reason. And he could handle it better, but can you judge a guy for doing the best with what he has? I don't know. It's just like a weird situation, and I don't know how I feel about him. He makes me feel icky, and it's like the stuff objectively that he does is like hot and cool and cute and whatever, and I think I would like it a lot more if I didn't have all of the context of all the bad stuff that he's done. If it was just like, in general, this misunderstood sad boy, chef's kiss. I love a misunderstood sad boy. But this guy, I don't know. You can't trick me into loving him. I'm not falling for it. As much as I want to, I'm not falling for it. Once they are home, though, and settled after returning from the summer court, Feyre goes up to the rooftop and sees Rysand, and Rysand's up there, and he's upset because they got sent 3 blood rubies from the summer court, which is essentially telling them that there's a bounty on their heads because they betrayed them, the summer court, right? They brought them in, they had dinners with them, they supported them, they had all this really deep conversations, and Rysand's really upset about being, having a bounty on his head from them, and that he had to betray them because he really, really liked the Summer King. And Feyre, the whole time, she's like, well, couldn't we have just asked him for the book? Like, why did we have to steal it and be sneaky? He seems like he wanted to change and he was a good guy. Like, why couldn't we just do that? And Rysand's like, I didn't want to risk it. So now he's upset that he lost a potential friend. And that night, she wakes up because there's shadows in her room from Rysand because he's having a nightmare. And it takes her a lot to get him out of this and to, like, wake him up out of said nightmare. And then they end up bonding about it. And it's a whole thing. And she realizes how broken he really is. And that's why the inner circle isn't allowed to stay at his townhouse. Like, that's why they all stay elsewhere, because of his nightmares, and he doesn't want them to know about it because he doesn't want to burden them with what he had to experience. Which again, I'm like, I would normally think that was really like valiant and hot, but something's not hitting right. A bunch of time passes. It's just, I don't know, training and hanging out and vibing and friend stuff, and Amren trying to work on this book, when they finally get a response from the queens, and it is now time to go and meet them. So they go back to her sister's house. They're hanging out, waiting for the queens to arrive, and then all of a sudden the queens teleport into the house, which is a huge deal because like humans really aren't supposed to do that. They have been given some type of crazy power, or they have this like crazy strength. It's just kind of scary, a little off-putting and whatever. So we have the 5 queens. They've got guardsmen. Feyre, her sisters, Rysand are there, and then Cassian and Azriel are their guardsmen. And Feyre does all the talking because she's the emissary, right? She's like the representative for the Night Court to these people. So they go on, you know, talking about like how big of a deal this is, and they need this half of this book because they do believe in unity of the humans and the Fae, and King Hybern wants to kill all of the humans off. And the queens are doubting their stories. And so Morrigan goes on to talk about Miriam, which was Jurian's partner, who he thinks died, and they've told the whole world that they died, but they didn't. Miriam was the first and only other human other than Feyre that got turned into a Fae. Dude, again, it's like C-plot shit. She got turned into a Fae, and she ended up running away with this other Fae warrior guy, and so now they're like living happily ever after on an island with humans and Fae, and they live together and everything's great. And so they tell this, and Morrigan is a truth teller, I think it's called. I don't know why exactly that is, or what exactly that means, but Morrigan tells them this, and then she's like, yeah, and I fought in the war on behalf of the humans, 500 years ago, and I helped set a bunch of humans free, and they all just doubt it. Like, they all just doubt all of these stories, and Rysand's like, okay, well, I can prove it to you. Like, I can prove that we can live peacefully, and that we're, good people who are just trying to do the best for everybody. And then the queens disappear. And so the way that they're going to prove it is, I guess there's this orb in Hewn City, right? The, like, underground, really bad city in the Court of Night. And it's like, it's like a truth orb. I guess, like, Morrigan can use it to, like, cast visions in the orb. And then the queens will see that. And then that will prove to them that they're good people, and they're going to show the queens Valaris as evidence of the happy city and what the Night Court really is, and then that will prove that they're good people and that the queen should give them the book. So they're going to, now they have to go to Hewn City to go and get the book. Keeping in mind, I don't know if I've said this, I doubt it, the guy who runs Hewn City is Morrigan's father. Her father, when she turned 18, like, pretty much sold her out. She was really, really powerful, incredibly, incredibly strong. And so, like, the second that she got her period, Dad was gonna, like, force her hand in marriage with the son of the Autumn Court to, like, build the bonds between the courts and their, like, armies. And before they did that to her, she slept with Cassian, so that way she would be viewed as, like, bad or not worth doing. She would be, like, soiled, basically. And then they ended up instead, like, just torturing her, and she almost died. And then Cassian and Azriel had to save her because I guess her parents, after everybody was done hurting her really, really badly, they dropped her off and left her for dead in the woods. And then Azriel and Cassian found her and then have kept her safe, and that's why they're all BFFs now. That's the short and sweet of it. It literally gets told to you in, like, again, 8 different ways throughout the book, but I'm pretty sure that's, like, the important part of it that you need to know. And so with them going to Hewn City, Rysand does not want Feyre to go with him because he's gonna have to be an asshole king. He has to live up to his title and everybody fearing him and like being what they expect him to be, so that they will continue to respect him, right? And like just go with what he says and stuff. So he's gonna have to be a douchebag. And so he's like, I don't want you to see that part of me. I don't want you to see me be a monster. And she's like, I want to see every part of you. Feyre says, I want to go. I want to see all of you. Bring me with you. So they do. They fly to Hewn City, right? Rysand is carrying her and they fly, and Azriel and Cassian are with them as well. And right as they're about to get there, they get attacked with a barrage of ash arrows. So somebody's trying to kill them. It's a whole bit of drama. They don't get hurt. I think they're able to shield from it, but this opens up a lot of concern of like, who did this? Why did they do this? Why are they in our territory? What the F is going on, right? Opens this can of worms. This is like the beginning of the can of worms. And then they are going to send out a bunch of scouts and like search the areas in the woods and stuff to figure out what's going on. They continue their way to Hewn City though. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. They go in there, they try to act all badass, and then Rysand goes and sits on his throne, and the guy who's running the city comes in and is trying to talk to him, and Rysand's being very dismissive, and then he pulls Feyre onto his lap and begins like touching her, and then she's all into it, and they have this whole like really flirtatious moments on the throne in front of all of these people, and he's being really like demeaning to her, and to prove that to prove what? I don't know. To do what? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the purpose of this. But she's in on it, and she agrees to it, and she's like, this is for the best, and I know that it is, and he feels so guilty and bad about having to be the bad guy right now, but I know he doesn't mean it. Do you? Because every time he goes in public with you, this is how he treats you. So, like, explain that to me. Especially in this current moment. What are we doing? Who are we trying to prove this to? I thought you're like the most powerful guy ever, and we're in your court. Like, we're in a different city, but you still run the place. So like, what are we doing right now? I don't know. And then the guy who runs the city calls her a whore, and then Rysand breaks a bunch of his bones and tells people to not heal him, and then they grab the orb and they leave. What is the purpose of any of this? I don't know. Character development? Maybe? Exposure to things. I don't know what I'm supposed to get out of this, but I'm just telling you what's going on. And then they end up, oh my god, after they steal everything, Rysand teleports away with Feyre, and they go to this like private secluded space, and he apologizes for the way that he had to treat her. And what actually does matter, okay, actually genuinely, okay, my bad, I forgot, I have it in my notes and I forgot about this. The guy calling Feyre a whore is very, very touchy for Rysand, because that's what everybody called him when he was under the mountain, right? He was Amarantha's. And so it was triggering to him in that way. And Rysand says, I will never lock you up, force you to stay behind. But when he threatened you tonight, when he called you, it's hard to put down my instincts. Because he's, apologizing for being rude and then for acting out and like breaking the guy's bones in front of her and stuff and having to be so violent. Instincts, just like someone else had instincts to protect, to hide me away. Then you should have prepared yourself better, I snapped. You seem to be going along just fine with it until Keir said, I will kill anyone who harms you. I will kill them. And take a damn long time doing it. Go ahead, hate me, despise me for it? You are my friend, I said, and my voice broke on the word. You're my friend, and I understand that you're High Lord. I understand that you will defend your true court and punish threats against it, but I can't. I don't want you to stop telling me things, inviting me to things because the threat's against me. I am not him, Rice breathed. I will never be him, act like him, lock you up and let you wither and die. He tried. Stop comparing him to me. Okay. You think I don't know how stories get written, how this story will be written? I'm the Dark Lord who stole away the bride of spring. I'm a demon and a nightmare, and I will meet a bad end, and he's a golden prince. The hero who will get to keep you as his reward for not dying of stupidity and arrogance. And what about my story? I hissed. What about my reward? What about what I want? What is it that you want, Feyre? I had no answer. I didn't know. Not anymore. Ah, what is it that you want, Feyre? I stayed silent. His laugh was bitter, soft. I thought so. Perhaps you should take some time to figure that out one of these days. Perhaps I don't know what I want, but at least I don't hide what I am behind a mask. At least I let them see who I am, broken bits and all. Yes, it's to save your people, but what about the other masks, Rysand? What about letting your friends see your real face? But maybe it's easier not to, because what if you did let someone in, and what if they saw everything and still walked away? Who could blame them? Who would want to bother with that sort of mess? And then they teleport home, and then they don't talk for like 3 weeks. It's so toxic. This is such a toxic relationship. Oh my god. I just don't understand why this fight even happened. You know what I mean? Like, very clearly, he acted out in rage because of his trauma with that word and with the way that he was treated and, like, wanting to not have her be called that. It was, like, it's a completely different scenario. And I don't know why she had to have such a low blow. Because he has opened up to her about being a sad boy. And, like, about how he gets everything he loves gets taken away from him, and so he's so afraid to love anything or do anything and get close to anybody because he doesn't want to lose them, especially after what the frick he just went through under the mountain, where he did all of that for 50 years so that he could protect the things that he loved. And so obviously he's doing all of this from like a really good place in his heart of wanting to protect people. And I don't know, I guess also maybe she was having a trauma response to the idea of being protected, quote unquote. I don't know, it's just messy and toxic and bad and nobody talks. But they teleport back and she decides, like, I overreacted and I said some horrible things and I want to be with Rysand. I do love him. Blah, 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 blah. She's like, I do feel bad and he is a good man. And she wants to tell him this, but then he just doesn't appear ever. He just stays away running around all the time. I think I was dramatic. I don't think it was weeks. I think it was like a couple days. At one point, she ends up going to Amarin to try to get information about where Rysand is or what he's up to and stuff, and she doesn't reveal anything. Amarin doesn't tell her anything, but what she does say is that when Rysand came back after Amarantha, he was a ghost. He pretended he wasn't, but he was, and you made him come alive again. Words stalled, and I didn't want to think about it. Not when whatever good I'd done, whatever good we'd done for each other, might have been wiped away by what I'd said to him. So I said, he's lucky to have you all. No, she said softly, more gently than I had ever heard. We are lucky to have him, Feyre. I turned from the door. I have known many High Lords. Amren continued, studying her paper. Cruel ones, cunning ones, weak ones, powerful ones, but never one that dreamed, not as he does. Dreams of what? I breathed. Of peace? Of freedom? Of a world united? A world thriving? Of something better for all of us? He thinks he'll be remembered as the villain in the story. She snorted. But I forgot to tell him, I said quietly, opening the door, that the villain is usually the person who locks up the maiden and throws away the key. Oh? I shrugged, and he was the one who let me out. It's the dumbest shit I've ever read in my entire life. That is so Tumblr. That is so 2012 Tumblr. That is so funny. Yeah. And also, again, we literally just had this conversation. She almost verbatim had that exact same conversation with the Summer King Court of... Oh no. The King of the Summer Court. She literally just had this conversation about how Rysand was the one that saved her. Can we please stop repeating ourselves? I'm losing my freaking mind, dude. And I'm on chapter 45. I think there's 20 chapters left. There can't be 20 chapters, right? Oh, there is. There's 69 chapters. Oh my god. This book is so long. For what reason? Hold on. I need to work on my summarizing. I need to get through this. I'm losing my mind. He continues to ignore her, and she's writing him like letters, talking mad crap the entire time. At first, she like kind of apologized. And then she just kept talking and he kept ignoring her. And then eventually she called him a coward. and he still never showed up. And then comes the Starfall Festival, which is like an annual thing up in the court night of court. I'm never gonna get these right, bro. I'm like 5 hours in to this book and I'm still not getting these right. So it's an annual thing where it's like these souls that are transiting the sky that seem like falling stars, but they're not. But also, if you touch them, it's like ectoplasm and it glows on your face. I don't know. Don't look at me like that. But it is a celebration. And so everybody gets together to throw like a party and they all get dressed up all fancy and everybody looks really nice. And yeah, the festival. And Rysand finally shows up for this. And then he and Feyre have like a moment off to the side together where it's, you know, very touchy-feely, apologizing and realizing how much they like each other and like staring deeply and lovingly into each other's eyes. And then they get like hit in the face with a star. Feyre does, like literally right in her face. And then he says that she has glowing freckles and not to wipe it off. And then Rysand gets hit in the face with one. And I'm like, so is that person dead now? Like, obviously they were like dead, but are they like dead? Is their soul like just gone forever? And there's some really deep, cute conversations about the souls transiting the sky. And I would love to tell you about it and read you the quote so that you could like understand, because that's my favorite stuff, dude. Like death, soul, reincarnation, things like that, of that nature, my bread and butter. I love reading books that have to do with that, but I'm not going to tell you it because I don't like this book and I'm not going to give it any freaking credit. And because it doesn't even matter. Like, it doesn't even do anything. Like, they don't even explain it. You just tease me with this idea of this like really cool festival and then you don't do anything with it. You just turn it into a flirting moment. And then they go dancing and they actually laugh, and it's the first time that she laughs. And she actually smiles, and she gives Rysand a smile, and it's a huge deal. And he's like, you're so beautiful when you smile. And then she's like, and you're so beautiful when you laugh. And then they dance the night away. And the next day, they're having to go to the Alarian warrior training camps because Rysand wants to continue to train Feyre on her stuff. And then also they're just kind of making their rounds and also trying to get everybody prepped for this war stuff and making sure that everybody's all, you know, up to snuff. And then we learn about how, we mentioned it previously, how like sexist all of these guys are and they don't want to train any of them or train any women. Get a bunch of like kind of lore dumpy stuff about the warriors and about Rysand, Cassian, and Azriel's past. Specifically about the blood rite thing that I talked about before. So like the warriors will train in this camp. The blood rite is like the final thing that they have to do, where they all get dropped off in random locations and then they have to fight to the top of the mountain. And you can do it in groups, but you kind of have to like band together. And if you start as a group like these three did, they start in 3 different locations and they have to like find each other and kill off a bunch of people on the way and whatnot. And they ended up completing it together, and it was a really, really huge deal because, again, it was like a half Alarian and then 2 bastard sons, and so it was a very big deal to prove all of these like purebred, highfalutin guys wrong, that they're stronger than them, right? It's a very, very big deal that they did this. So we get that lore. We get the lore about Morrigan being treated crappy. We get information about Rysand's past. We finally figure out why Rysand and Tamlin have beef. They were friends. Rysand and Tamlin were friends. Tamlin was younger than me, born when the war started, but after the war, when he'd matured, we got to know each other at various court functions. He seemed decent for a High Lord's son, better than the Autumn Court brood. Tamlin's brothers were equally as bad, though. Worse. And then they knew Tamlin would take the title one day. Into a half-breed Alarian who'd have to prove himself, defend his power. I saw what Tamlin went through. I befriended him. Sought him out whenever I was able to get away from the war camps or court. Maybe it was pity, but I taught him some Alarian techniques. Did anyone know? Cassian and Azriel knew. My family knew and disapproved, but Tamlin's father was threatened by it, by me. And because he was weaker than both me and Tamlin, he wanted to prove to the world that he wasn't. My mother and sister were to travel to the Alarian war camp to see me. I was supposed to meet them halfway, but I was busy training a new unit and decided to stay. Tamlin's father, brothers, and Tamlin himself set out to the Alarian wilderness, having heard from Tamlin, from me, where my mother and my sister would be, and I had plans to see them. I was supposed to be there. I wasn't, and they slaughtered my mother and sister anyway. It should have been me, he said. They put their heads in boxes and sent them down the river to the nearest camp. Tamlin's father kept their wings as trophies. I'm surprised you didn't see them pinned in the study. When my father heard, I wasn't wholly truthful to you when I told you under the mountain that my father killed Tamlin's father and brothers. I went with him, helped him. We winnowed to the edge of the spring court that night, and then went the rest of the way on foot to the manor. I slew Tamlin's brothers on sight. I held their minds and rendered them helpless while I cut them into pieces, then melted their brains inside their skulls. And when I got to the High Lord's bedroom, he was dead, and my father had killed Tamlin's mother as well. My father had promised not to touch her, that we weren't those kinds of males who would do that, but he lied to me, and he did it anyway. And then we went for Tamlin's room, and the second Tamlin opened the door, he killed Rysand's father, like on sight. And then Rysand ran away, and that's why they're beefing. So then I'm like, so did Amarantha not know about Tamlin killing Rysand's mom and sister? Because the whole reason that we said that Amarantha had punished Rysand in this way was because Rysand had killed Tamlin's family. But if Tamlin's dad started it, then why are we taking it out on Rysand right now? Hello? Okay. Yeah. And they talk a little bit more about it, and they have this more, sad guy bonding relationship, sad trauma bonding. That's not the right word, but you know what I'm saying. Bonding over traumatic experiences. And then all of a sudden, it hits her like a bolt of lightning. And she's like, I want to paint. I want to paint the scene. I want to paint you. And then he kisses her, and he says, nude would be best. And I'm supposed to think that this is cute. I'm supposed to be like, oh my God, that's so funny. This is the levity, the light joking to counteract this like horrible trauma dump that we just got. And now I'm happy again. It's not working. It's not working on me. This is just weird and frustrating. And like we'll talk about it. Anyway, they talk more and more about training and Rysand training Feyre. And then she's in the woods practicing, and she gets approached. She's like by a creek, and so she doesn't hear them. She walks far away because she's going to do her fire training, and she wants to be near the water in case something goes sideways, because she can also control water to put it out. And so she goes over to this river lake thing, and it's loud enough that she doesn't hear people approaching. And it is Lucien and a bunch of the other guys from the spring court. They have been searching for her for weeks. They have been scouring the woods trying to find her. And luckily they had like caught her scent in the woods, and then now they're here. And assumably they're the ones that had shot all of the ash arrows at Cassian, Azriel, and Rysand when they were like flying to Hewn City the other day. Maybe, supposedly, I don't know. And so she ends up arguing with them, and she's like, I'm not going back, Lucien. You know he was a monster. I'm not doing it. And Lucien's like, come on, he apologized. You can't keep pouting and throwing a fit like this. Like, you don't understand how serious this is. And she's like, I do, and you didn't respect me, and he didn't respect me, and whatever. And then Lucien tries to grab her, but she knows if Lucien grabs her, he'll teleport her away. And so she teleports away instead, and she ends up teleporting right next to Rysand. And then they really stick it to the man. I'm so tired of this book, can you tell? So she like teleports next to him, and then she uses her shape-shifting ability and like grows wings to like intimidate them. And Lucien's like, what has he done to you? And she says, leave me alone. I don't know why I didn't say it explicitly. He does leave her alone. Lucien and the guys leave. And then Feyre and Rysand continue their training. They train all day. Eventually they end up getting tired. And then there's like a nearby inn that they crash at for the night. The one really, really important thing about this stay at the hotel inn thing They go up there. It's only one room, and it's one of those like rent by the hour type places, and it's like up in the attic, and it's really, really cramped quarters. And they get up there, and there's only one bed, and Rysand's like, I swear there was two. And then we get like that trope. They're laying together. It's really, really cold out. And then they end up like hugging, and they're really, really close. And Rysand asks her again, like, what do you want, Freya? And she says, I want a distraction. In terms of like them hooking up or like doing something sexually, she says, I want a distraction. I want to have fun. Which, what a horrific thing to say to a man who you know got used sexually for 50 years. He got abused for 50 years by a woman who just wanted him for fun or whatever you want to call it. And then that's going to be your response to him? Okay. That made me so mad. I was like, that's so messed up to say, dude. Especially because she doesn't mean it. She likes him. She's like, obviously, he doesn't think of me that way, so I don't want to be the clingy one, so I'm going to say the most hurtful thing ever. She's not saying it to be hurtful, but I'm like, how about you use your brain for a second and like be an ounce of empathetic to his like stories that he's been telling you? Why would you tell that to him? Made me so mad. And then they do some stuff, and then like whatever. Okay, so they get like semi halfway freaky, you know, like a OTPHJ type vibes going on. Really kind of pushing some boundaries. Like these guys are really, you know, hot and bothered for each other type of thing. And we're starting to cross that line. But we can't cross it for too long because the next day they're flying back from the inn. They're flying to, I don't know, somewhere, the war camp, and they get attacked by a bunch of ash arrows. And this time they do hit Rysand. They hit a bunch of like in his wings, and so he goes like tumbling down, and as he's falling he like shoots a bunch of power at Freya to like send her as far away as possible so they don't get hurt. And then he gets captured by these people, and she lands in the trees, and she's able to save herself because of course she is. She like channels one of her powers and then falls into the treetops, and it's getting late and it's like really dark outside because they were at the inn and then they like practiced all day and were doing magic all day, and then time to go back to the war camp or whatever. I don't know. I'm not looking at it again. I read it once. I'm not doing it again. You can't make me. So she's in the woods. Rysand's gone. She's trying to speak to him through their bond, but he's not there. And she just hears like a scream, and she knows that it's him, and she knows that he's hurt, and the ash arrows hurt him, and he's not going to be able to heal, and this isn't a good sign. And so she goes like Super Saiyan mode, and she's like, I don't know, like, does like this is how I envision it. And she's like, okay, I can do everything now. So like winnows like treetop to treetop as she tries to like sense him and smell him on the air, and she's like dodging monsters that are on the ground and staying away from all these monsters. And then eventually she finds the location. She tracks down the arrows, and she sees a bunch of them in the trees, and she's like grabbing them and collecting all these ash arrows. And then she can tell that this must have been a group of like 26 people that would have collected him. And then we come to a fork in the road, and one of the groups went to the left and took the easier path down, and then the other group went to the right and up the mountain. And they would have thought that I would pick that one because that's the harder route, and they would have thought that I would have thought that they would have taken the easy route. So then they must have done the hard route to Uno reverse it on me, you know? And she's like, but there's something that they don't know. I can smell him. And she, I don't know, does some super sensing mode of like, where is he? And she realizes that both paths smell like him. So she's like, they must have known that I could, so they took his clothes. So one group has Rysand's clothing and the other group has Rysand. Where could he be? And she goes, what they don't know is that he smells like me, because at the inn last night they slept together, and so his clothes are gone, but he didn't shower or something because the bathrooms were really gross, and so they didn't shower that morning, and so they smell like each other. And so she smells herself, and so then she goes the right direction to find him. And then she finds the cave where they are. And then she grabs her ash arrows out of her bag, and she like binds them together to make like two like dagger stabby sticks. And then she winnows inside, she slashes a bunch of throats, winnows behind the other guys before they could do anything or raise any type of alarm, and slashes their throats. And then she finds Rysand, and then she's able to pull him down. And he had these like crazy binds on him, like this special chain that is from King Hybern's court, that it's this like crazy ancient stone that like negates all of your magical abilities. And that's why he couldn't talk to her through the bond, because the chains made it so that he didn't have any power at all. And so she frees him of this, and then she grabs him, and then she winnows away to a cave that she spotted earlier in the day that was off by the creek or something. And she's like, it's not great and it's kind of damp, but it'll do. We just have to get out of here. So she winnows to this river cave, and they go inside, and then she has to rip all of his arrows out of him. She's trying to talk to him and talk him through the pain and like keep him distracted. And so she tells him about the summer that she got the paint. Again, we have heard this story 75 times. She tells him the story of Elaine buying her paint and how she took it and she painted little pictures all over the house for everybody, like for her sisters and then for herself. And she says, I painted flowers for Elaine, who loved to grow things. I can't remember what she painted for Nesta. And then she's like, for mine, I painted a night sky. I wonder if some part of me knew what was waiting for me, that I would never be a gentle grower of things or someone who burned like fire, but that I would be quiet and enduring and as faceted as the night, that I would have beauty for those who knew where to look. And if people didn't bother to look, but to only fear it, then I didn't particularly care for them anyway. I wonder if, even in my despair and hopelessness, I was never truly alone. I wonder if I was looking for this place, looking for you all, which is kind of cute. Again, I love that idea. If she's like, I had these visions that kept me going in my saddest times because, you know, I saw you and we're linked. And that should be alarming to you, that she says that we were connected, and I think I've known you for a long time, and I always knew that I would be here. She gets all the arrows out of him, and he's still just like not feeling great, and he's getting worse, and he has a fever, and it's not looking very good. And so she ends up like bundling him up, and they go to sleep, and he's still getting worse. And so she's like, okay, I don't know what to do. The only thing that I know of like how I can try to save him, because she's too weak to winnow away, and she doesn't know exactly where they are to like get safely, and she doesn't want to like, you know, like traverse. She doesn't want to traverse the woods alone or like with him bloody, because she's afraid that they're going to smell him and sense him and whatnot. And so she does the only thing that she can think of, which is trap a Suriel. If you remember in book number 1, she trapped a Suriel to get information about the spring court, and then I think a second time, I think he came back up. I don't remember, it doesn't matter. This is like a different type of fae that will answer any questions that you have. So she gets another one. This time it's because she gives it a fancy robe or cape or something. The Suriel goes on to tell her how to heal Rysand. You know, he's like, hey, there's like some flowers by the river or whatever, just like make him chew on them, and yeah, cut your arm and make him drink some of your blood, and that'll heal him as well. Your mate will be okay. She says, my mate? The High Lord of the Night Court is your mate. Interesting, the Suriel said, because he realizes that she doesn't know that, and he's like, that's kind of weird. Like, even, you know it's bad when even the freaking crazy monster guy is saying that this is a weird situation. Mate. Rysand was my mate. Not my lover, not my husband, but more than that. A bond so deep, so permanent that it was honored all over all others. Rare, cherished. Not Tamlin's mate. Rysand's. Does he know? The Suriel clenched the robes of its new cloak in its bone fingers. Yes. For a long while? Yes, since... No, he can tell me. I want to hear it from his lips. You are feeling too much too fast. I cannot read it. How can I possibly be his mate? He's the most powerful High Lord to ever walk this earth. You are new. You are made of all 7 High Lords, unlike anything. Are you two not similar in that? Are you not matched? And she realizes, oh, this knew. He's known that I've been his mate and he didn't tell me. And so begins another incredibly frustrating stint of the book that, like, I genuinely, it all feels so contrived. Anytime that Rysand and Feyre get in these fights, it feels so contrived and forced, where I'm just like, why are you forcing a third act to break up on me right now? Why was this necessary? What good did this do for anything? Oh, it's to humanize him. Oh, it's to, I don't know, add some drama. Dude, shut the fuck up. We've already had so much of it. Like, just like, I don't know. It all just feels so frustrating and extra, and you'll understand, I'll tell you. So she's pissed off because she's like, he knew that he was my mate. And so she goes back to the cave with the flowers that the Suriel told her to go and get. She grabs them. She, like, shoves them in Rysand's mouth and in his mouth, and then she, like, cuts her hand and then, like, or her arm and, like, puts it in his mouth and makes him drink her blood. And then she says, let me quote it direct because this, again, pissed me off so bad. She's like, you don't get to ask questions, you only get to answer them and nothing more. And again, I would just like to remind you, this man is on the brink of death. He is actively dying right now. And she decides to have this conversation now and do all of this in this particular moment, okay? I just want you to keep that in, like, the forefront of your mind. You only get to answer them, nothing more. Wariness flooded his eyes, but he nodded, biting off another mouthful of the weed and chewing. How long have you known that I'm your mate? Rysand stilled. The entire world stilled. He swallowed. Feyre, how long have you known that I'm your mate? You ensnared the Suriel? I said you don't get to ask any questions. I suspected for a while. I knew for certain when Amarantha was killing you. And when we stood on the balcony under the mountain, right after we were freed, I felt it snap into place between us. I think when you were made, it heightened the smell of the bond. I looked at you, and the strength of it hit me like a blow. So that's the point. In book number 1, I was like, oh, I bet she turned into some, like, superhero. I bet she's, like, a thing of legends, and he recognized it. And now she's going to be, like, fulfilling some prophecy is what I expected, because I feel like that's what happens in, like, fantasy books. I forgot that we were in a romantasy, and that moment when he stumbled saying goodbye to her, it was him realizing that they had a bond. So they're bonded mates. And I am pissed off, and you guys were right about it. Because that's so lame. That's so freaking lame to me. When were you going to tell me? I don't know. I wanted to yesterday or whenever you'd noticed that it wasn't just a bargain between us. I hoped you might realize when I took you to bed. And do the others know? Amren and Morrigan do. Azriel and Cassian suspect it. Why didn't you tell me? You were in love with him. You were going to marry him. And then you were enduring everything and it didn't feel right to tell you. I deserved to know. The other night you told me you wanted a distraction. You wanted fun, not a mating bond, not to someone like me, a mess. And this, like, genuinely, don't make me feel bad for this guy, but I feel bad for this guy. Because he was doing the right thing and, like, not telling her in the sense of he wanted her to have, like, her peace and her happiness, and he was going to, like, sacrifice his bond to let her be happy. Obviously, until he realized how unhappy she was and then, you know, helped her get out of the situation and stuff. But he was going to take the L for that, and he was going to let her live her best life and just deal with the suffering. Noble, respectable, whatever, right? And then I don't blame him after she said all that hurtful shit about nobody wanting to be with him if they actually knew who he was, and that she just wanted fun. I, in this moment, am 100% on Rysand's side of not telling her after those comments, but if he knew that she was his mate for that long, and he knew that she was on board with being a part of the court and that she was here and they were flirting, he should have told her sooner. She's worked through her trauma, kind of, sort of, right? She had that, like, big crazy moment on the, when they were fighting, when they were training, and she channeled the fire and she was like, I wished it was me, or it should have been me, and they had their, like, breakthrough moment of stuff. That should have been the moment that he told her this thing, right? Like, this should have come up. And the fact that he didn't tell her and, like, continued to question her or doubt her or, like, put her in harm's way is so crappy when he could have just explained this and we wouldn't have had half the drama that we freaking did in this book. And so she responds to him and she's like, you promised no secrets, no games. I know I did. You think I didn't want to tell you? You think I liked hearing that you wanted me only for amusement and release? You think it didn't drive me out of my mind? Blah, blah, blah. They have a whole argument. And then she's like, take me home. And he's, again, like dying. Because the ash arrows were poisoned with, I don't know, something Bane. Fey Bane? I don't know. Something. He's like sick, okay? He's like barely recovering. And she's like, I want to go home right now. And so she makes him winnow or teleport and like use the very, very last of his like magical abilities to like teleport them in chunks to get back to the war camp. And by the time they get there, he is so exhausted and feeling crappy that he can't even teleport them into the actual building. And he ends up like outside in the front yard and like completely collapses. And then she just storms on inside, and Azriel and Morrigan are inside eating dinner. They look up, they see this, they come running. She looks fine, he's like dying, and so Azriel rushes to him and she's like, Morrigan, take me away from here, take me as far away as you can. Okay, I hate these people. Morrigan does. She teleports her to this like secret family cabin, uber secluded, has all sorts of wards. You can't winnow into it. You have to like winnow outside of the property and then enter it, and only certain people can enter, and they haven't been here in a really, really long time, like since before Rysand went under the mountain. So here you go, secret magic house. Nobody will bother you. I'll come back in 3 days to check on you. Here you go, Feyre. Free reign. Deal with the house. And then it's a whole bunch of stupid shit at the house. I'm not even going to talk about it. She just like hangs out, takes a bath, unwinds. And then on like day 3 or day 2 or so, she gets kind of bored and she ends up finding paint. And then she starts painting everything in the house and like painting pictures, and finds her inspiration and love, and she realizes that she does love Rysand, and it doesn't matter because she feels the bond too, and she does love him and wants to be with him, and this is her family, and she loves the Night Court, and this is exactly where she wants to be. We literally already said that. You already told me that the last time that you and Rysand got in a fight. Why are you telling me again? Okay, I'm looking through my notes. Do I care to tell you any of this bullshit? Yeah, it's literally like 5 chapters of just her in this house thing. And then eventually on like, I don't know, the 5th day, Rysand appears. Morrigan visited her like one other time, and you know, they had dinner and they had like girl talk, and it was, you know, cutesy bonding time. And Morrigan again opened up and we heard her traumatic backstory for the 4th time. And then she left, and then Rysand showed up like the next day, and she wasn't expecting to see Rysand, and she lets him come in, and they, you know, work through it, and they're in love or what the frick ever. And so she's like, okay, well, you look cold, can I like cook you something? I'll heat you up some soup or whatever. And he's like, you want to cook for me? She's like, yeah, why are you being weird about it? And apparently this is like a really, really big deal. Like when a mated couple, when the woman offers her mate food, it means that she accepts the bond. And so she's like, okay, well, I'm gonna make you soup, tell me your whole story while I'm making it, and I'll decide. So pretty much like he's gonna tell her the story, and then by the end of it she'll give him this bowl of soup or not, if it's an acceptable reason. And we get it again explained to us like 3 times over. And I know I'm rolling my eyes so much in this video. I'm so sorry, but I literally cannot help it. I'm so frustrated and like already just like done anyway. And this book is pissing me off even more, having to read it a second time to like tell you about it. Like I'm so genuinely sick of reading the book at this point. This is truly for the love of the game. Page 517 is when he starts telling her about everything, And he finishes his story on 528. So we get 11 pages of lore dump of Rysand's past and who he is and why he is the way he is. And this is the redemption arc at, again, page 528 after what was the first book, like 400 pages. So I'm rounding up because I'm a dramatic bitch. We're 1,000 pages into your story and you're just now giving me like, plot twist, the guy that you thought was an evil, conniving sucker, he's actually the most caring, gentle, wonderful man in the entire world. Okay. I don't even know where to start. The idea of summarizing those pages to you, I literally gave up last night. Like, I had to stop filming. I couldn't do it. So 24 hours later, let me try this again. So, oh my Jesus, I gotta like scroll all the way to the back to the freaking beginning. So I'm literally just gonna scroll, because obviously this is important enough, right? Actually, let me get you closer to me, honey. So I don't know why I called you honey. Sorry, that was weird. I don't think we're like that. So obviously this is important enough, right? That this is like what makes some people fall in love with Rysand, and this is what, this is obviously a very important character development moment per Sarah J. Maas because it's 11 pages long. So I'm going to like scroll and kind of give you a summary of each paragraph specifically because I do feel like this is obviously such a critical moment to her. So back in the big war 500 years ago, Rysand was captured by Amarantha. He got held for weeks, and she had also captured a bunch of his warriors and had tortured and killed all of them in front of him. Luckily, Cassian and Azriel were doing different stuff, so they weren't a part of this group. She didn't care that I was there. I was yet another High Lord's son, and Jurian had just slaughtered her sister. All she cared about was getting to him, killing him. She had no idea that every second, every breath, I plotted her death. I was willing to make it my last stand, to kill her at any cost, even if it meant shredding my wings to break free. And then he ended up watching Amarantha and Jurian fight directly in front of him, and then watched Jurian get slaughtered and turned into the whole eyeball eyeball and then the bone part. I listened to her slowly over days and days tear him apart. His screaming was endless. She was so focused on doing that to him that she completely forgot that Rysand was there, and so eventually his dad came and broke him out, and so he got rescued. But his father told Azriel to leave the ash spikes in my wings as punishment for getting caught. And so he got forced to go home because he had to go and rest and heal. Otherwise, like, he would never be able to fly again or like use his wings. And so he completely missed out on the last like final battles of the war. They made the treaty, the wall was built, we'd long ago freed our slaves in the night court. We didn't trust the humans to keep our secrets, not when they bred so quickly and frequently. My forefathers couldn't hold the other minds at once, but our world was changed nonetheless. We were all changed by the war. Cassian and Azriel came back different, I came back different. And he was so angry because all of this happened and then nobody got punished. Amarantha went unpunished. King of Hybern went unpunished. Too much killing had occurred on either side for everyone to be brought to justice, they said. Even my father gave me an order to let it go, to build toward a future of coexistence. But I never forgave Amarantha for what she had done to my warriors. I never forgot it either. Tamlin's father, he was her friend, and when my father slaughtered him, I was so damn smug that perhaps she'd feel an inkling of what I'd felt when she murdered my soldiers. When Amarantha returned to these shores centuries later, I still wanted to kill her. And the worst part is that she didn't even remember who he was. She didn't remember hurting him and doing all of this stuff. Because, again, he was just another kid, another, High Lord's kid at the time. And so he had planned to kill her now that she had returned. And so that's why he went to that party where 50 years ago, Amarantha had poisoned everybody and gave the curse and took all of the king's power and everything. He was there because he wanted to end her life. He didn't bring Azriel or Cassian or Moore or anybody, or, Amaranth or anybody with him, because he didn't want Amarantha to hurt them. He didn't want Amarantha to know anything about him. And so he went all by himself. And so that's where he messed up. I didn't want anyone else there that night to witness what I was to do, so no one bothered to sniff my drink. And as I felt my powers being ripped away by that spell she'd put on it at the toast, I flung them out one last time, like his powers, wiping Valaris, the wards, all that was good from the minds of the Court of Nightmares, the only ones I'd allowed to come with me. I threw the shield around Valaris. So also, I didn't say this earlier, so Valaris is known as the Court of Dreams, and then Hewn City is known as the Court of Nightmares. And so he took soldiers from the Court of Nightmares with him here, because also that's the only court and only people and soldiers that anybody knows about, right? That's the only city that everybody knows about from the Night Court. And so he took the soldiers with him, used his powers to wipe their minds of Valaris. I threw shields around Valaris, binding it to my friends so that they had to remain or risk that protection collapsing, and used the last dregs to tell them mind to mind what was happening and to stay away. Within seconds, my power belonged wholly to Amarantha. She slaughtered half the Court of Nightmares right then and there to prove to me that she could, as for vengeance for Tamlin's father. And I knew in that moment that there was nothing I wouldn't do to keep her from looking at my court again, from looking too long at who I was and what I loved. So I told myself that it was a new war, a different sort of battle. And that night, when she kept turning her attention to me, I knew what she wanted. I knew it wasn't about me so much as it was about getting revenge on my father's ghost. But if that was what she wanted, then that's what she would get. Doing a whole bunch of stuff. Then she cursed Tamlin, and my other great enemy became the one loophole that might free us all, right? The whole finding a human, making them fall in love thing. So that was like the only chance that anybody had of breaking this curse. Every night that I spent with Amarantha, I knew that she was half wondering if I would try to hurt her. I couldn't use my powers to harm her, and she had shielded herself against physical attacks. But for 50 years, whenever I was inside her, I'd think about killing her. She had no idea, none, because I was so good at my job that she thought I'd enjoyed it too. She began to trust me more than the others. After a decade, I stopped expecting to see my friends or my people again. And then he goes on to say that 3 years ago, he started having dreams. It would be like random glimpses, as if I were staring through someone else's eyes, a crackling hearth in a dark home. Hearth? I got yelled at one time for how I said that on here, and I don't remember what the right pronunciation is. A warren of rabbits. The images were foggy, like looking through cloudy glass. They were brief, a flash here and there every few months. And so he's starting to see through her eyes, their like mate bond or whatever, but it's foggy vision because it's like through the wall of magic, and so he can't see it clearly. But the one night when he's dreaming and he's like looking at her is when she was painting, and so he had channeled her to paint the stars and moon and like night sky and stuff. It was the image that brought me joy when I needed it most. Open night, stars and the moon. I didn't know if it was received, but I tried anyway. And so, cutie, those dreams, those flashes of that person, that woman, I treasured them. They were a reminder that there was, and I highlighted this because I loved this particular sentence. Those dreams, the flashes of that person, that woman, I treasured them. They were a reminder that there was some peace out there in the world, some light, that there was a place and a person who had enough safety to paint flowers on a table. That, I don't know why that line isn't highlighted like 1,000 times over. I think that is such a beautiful idea and like a beautiful thing to cling to as hope. That there was a place and a person who had enough safety to paint flowers on a table. Ugh. And then one of the nights when he was sleeping next to Amarantha, he like jolted awake because he sensed Feyre like cross over into that realm. And then he started having the visions like vividly because she was now like on his side and like near him in Prythian. And so more and more starting seeing her in these visions and realizing that she was in the summer court. And so that's why he snuck out and told Amarantha that he was going to go try to find some spies. And that's how he got to that first festival in book 1 where he like first ran into her, was under the guise of looking for spies. And so when he had first approached her and he was like, hey, I've been looking for you. It wasn't a lie. He actually was. He was looking for this human. So he sees her and he was like, if that was the only time I ever got to saw you, like I was happy dying with that. Like I thought that maybe that was like pretty much like God's last gift to me, that I would at least be able to see my mate. And that was what would be, get me through the rest of this. And then he brought for traitors and like proof of his loyalty, the 3 guys that were like going to harm Feyre in the woods that night that he interrupted. He took them back and like wiped their minds and put some crazy thoughts in their brains to prove that they were traitors, and then watched as Amarantha like tortured them, as he feels okay about it because he's like, you don't understand what they were going to do to you. Like they deserved every ounce of pain that they got from her, even though they weren't traitors. Does that make sense? Like he just kind of like set them up as an excuse and stuff. And so that's how he got the ability to then go out again and run into her. Or he got sent out again by Amarantha the day after another holiday, like the solstice or whatever, to go and find spies again and go to Tamlin's court to try to find anything. And that's when he teleported into their room when they were having dinner, and Tamlin and Lucien sensed him, and then Lucien like pushed Feyre against the window and like they had a glamour, and then Rysand realized that she was there and made the glamour come down, and that whole thing. Okay, I have to go to this happy hour, I have to drive. Okay, lock in. He sensed it, and so he did all of that stuff, and he was like a real asshole to them and made Tamlin beg because he was trying to instill fear, enough fear that Tamlin would make her go home, because he knew that she wasn't safe in Prythian, and he, Rysand, was so afraid that Amarantha would find out about her, or find out they were mates, or would somehow like scramble up his brain enough to find out about her and harm her. And so he did everything he could to make sure that Tamlin sent Feyre home. He knew that she was lying to him when she said her name was Claire. He told Amarantha Claire Better's name, not knowing that she was going to get tortured. Not sure how you wouldn't expect that, but okay. And so when that happened and Amarantha was hurting Claire, I broke into Claire's head when they brought her under the mountain. I took away her pain and told her to scream when they expected to. So they did those things to her, and I tried to make it right, but after a week, I couldn't let them do it, hurt her like that anymore. It took you a week? So while they tortured her, I slipped into her mind again and ended it. She didn't feel any pain. She felt none of what they did to her, even at the end. But I still see her and my men and the others that I killed for Amarantha. Okay. I have to go to a happy hour. I'll be back later tonight to tell you the rest of this. I gotta take a break. That's okay. I'll be back. So he goes on to explain that when Feyre did end up coming back to Prythian and ended up under the mountain, he didn't know what to do, and he couldn't look at her and think of her, and he had to be mean to her so that Amarantha wouldn't be suspicious. And that, so like Amarantha wouldn't hurt her and stuff. And so that's why he was so mean. But that's also why he gave her the lifeline and made the deal, because that way he could communicate hope by making this deal, that it would communicate hope to the other people somehow. And he could help her out under the guise of like trying to piss off Tamlin or something. He's like, all my actions are justified. And then he goes on to say that your final trial came, and when she started torturing you, something snapped in a way I couldn't explain. Only that seeing you bleeding, screaming, undid me. It broke me at last. She was screaming and bleeding like she got the shit rocked out of her on day 1. And had a broken arm because the worm thing. And also, so that's the other thing. You could have continued to, like, under the guise of whatever, you could have been nice to her in her own prison cell where you were sneaking in and talking to her. You didn't have to be, like, a D-bag down there and making her, like, beg for help. And he, of course, somehow justifies that to be, like, giving her motivation and actually, you know what? Let me find where when you were hurt so badly against the worm, I found my way in with you, a way to defy Amarantha, to spread the seeds of hope to those who knew how to read the message, in a way to keep you alive without seeming suspicious, and a way to get back at Tamlin, to use him against Amarantha, to get back at him for my mother and sister and for having you. When we made that bargain, you were so hateful that I knew I'd done my job well. So we endured it. I made you dress like that so Amarantha wouldn't suspect, and made you drink the wine so you would not remember the nightly horrors in that mountain. I don't think those are good reasons. Also because, like, he's the one that made her face the nightly horrors in the mountain. He's the one that brought her to those parties and got her drunk and, like, painted her and did all of that stuff. That was so completely unnecessary. She literally, before he started taking her out to that, she was just sleeping in the cell, right? She had already been sleeping in the cell at night, minding her own freaking beeswax for a month and a half. You know what I'm saying? Like, she was fine. Obviously, she was kind of losing her mind, like isolation stuff, but the making her go every single night to that party was him doing it. That was his choice to subject her to those things and to have to make her drunk and forget about them. And he's the cause of the nightly horrors. Like, I don't get it. But then he sent her the music and gave her hope. But then there's also the point where she, when she was in the prison cell, he had made some comment to her, or like he almost kissed her that one time and then said something crappy, and then it like sparked hate in her, and she's like, that's what kept me going. So I'm supposed to be like, this is all for the good of the world. But he could have done all of those things and still have like helped her and not been mean and said the stuff that he did. Like, it makes no sense to me. So anyway, your final trial came, she was torturing you, blah, blah, blah. It broke me at last. And I knew I picked up that knife to kill her. I knew right then what you were. I knew that you were my mate and you were in love with another male and had destroyed yourself to save him. And that I didn't care. If you were going to die, I was going to die with you. I couldn't stop thinking it over and over as you screamed as I tried to kill her. You were my mate, my mate, my mate. And, I guess that's an interesting thing, too, that I had seen a couple people talk about, of Tamlin, how Feyre had given up everything, obviously, to come back and save him and, like, risked her life. And then Tamlin didn't do anything. He didn't try to push Amarantha. He didn't try to get out of the curse. Didn't, you know what I mean, even acknowledge her or anything. And, you know, we thought that maybe he was doing it for her protection, but then Rysand is painting it as though Tamlin was doing it because he didn't care as much, or Feyre thinks that maybe Tamlin didn't love her as much because he didn't try for her. But then I'm like, you can't use the same logic of like Tamlin was trying to protect you for bad, and then also Rysand was trying to protect you and he was a complete douche to you. So like, I don't know. It's all very like complex, convoluted, right? Like, none of these are good solutions. Like, everybody's in a bad situation. I'm not expecting anybody to be like, to do the right thing, because the right thing is impossible, right? I totally get that, but I don't know. So anyway, then he's like, and then I felt you die, and this beautiful, wonderful thing that had come into my life, this gift from the cauldron, it was gone. And so then he, with the curse broken, got all of his power back, and he went into all of the king's minds and like convinced all of them to give her the power to be a fae and to like bring her back and stuff. You'd freed us with your last breath, and my power, I wrapped my power around the bond, the mating bond. I could feel you flickering there, holding on. And so that was the like tug that she felt. It wasn't the fact that they had the bargain, it was that they were mates. And when she came back, I again had to watch Tamlin as he held you, kissed you. I wanted to go home to Valaris, but I had to stay to make sure things were set in motion and that you were all right. So I waited as long as I could, and then you came to find me. She didn't really come to find you. You, like, told her to come to you. I feel like that's a different phrasing, but that's okay. I almost told you then, but you were so sad and tired, and for once you looked at me like I was worth something. So I promised myself that the next time I saw you, I'd free you of this bargain because I was selfish, and I knew that if I let go right then, he'd lock you up and I would never get to see you again. Why would you think that Tamlin would lock her up and never let you see her again? Did you know that Tamlin was going to be crappy? Because then why is everybody else surprised by it? why this is, I guess, the character slaughter. Well, this is part one of the character slaughter for Tamlin in this book, of him becoming like a controlling douchebag that like locks her away and stuff. But like, okay, it's fine. When I went to leave you, I think transforming you into Fae made the bond lock into place permanently. I'd known it existed, but it hit me then. Hit me so strong that I panicked. I knew that if I stayed a second longer, I'd damn the consequences and take you with me, and you'd hate me forever. And that's the moment that everybody, when I made the prediction that she turned into like a super fae or something, or like a thing of myths and legends, and it turns out they were just mates. So that's frustrating. Oh my god, he's still going, guys. I knew I was in love with you the moment I picked up the knife for Amarantha. Didn't I already read that? How many times has he said that? When you finally came here, I decided I wouldn't tell you any of it. I wouldn't let you out of the bargain because your hatred was better than facing the two alternatives, that you felt nothing for me, or that you might feel something similar, and if I let myself love you, you would be taken from me, the way my family was, the way my friends were. So I didn't tell you. I watched as you faded away until that day he locked you up. I would have killed him if he'd been there, but I broke some very, very fundamental rules in taking you away. Amren said that if I got you to admit that we were mates, it would keep any trouble from our door, but I couldn't force the bond on you. I couldn't try to seduce you into accepting the bond either, even if it gave Tamlin license to wage war on me. You had been through so much already, I didn't want you to think that everything I did was to win you, just to keep my lands safe. But I couldn't. I couldn't stop being around you and loving you and wanting you. I still can't stay away. So instead of, I didn't want you to think that everything I did was to win you, just to keep my lands safe. But you are, and you are using her as a pawn to keep your lands safe. And you've led her to believe that multiple times, that you're using her as a pawn to keep your lands safe. So wouldn't you rather let her know that you're doing it out of like love and not pawn using, but as like, hey, we're mates, this is our land and we should protect it together? Like, why wouldn't you establish that when she comes to you? Like, the minute that she made that whole declaration about Tamlin and was like, I'm a part of the Night Court, and like proved her loyalty to the Night Court, and they had their moments and stuff, that's the moment that like he should have came clean about things. He could have even came clean about it before that. I thought you could read her mind and stuff. Can't you catch a vibe? Like, it just makes no sense to me that we're doing this and that he put it off for so long. And that specific sentence really, really pisses me off, because he has done nothing but make her feel and almost tell her like straight up that she's being used, and that he's using her for this like greater motive to whatever. Yeah, so he's like, I still can't stay away. And I said, you love me? Rysand nodded, and I wondered if love was too weak of a word for what he felt, what he'd done for me, what I felt for him. Yeah, it's a mating bond, you stupid. I set the bowl down before him. Then eat. So she accepts the mating bond. Yay! Is anybody surprised, I guess? I love it here. I'm having so much fun on page 528 of 643. I'm having so much fun. Can you tell how much fun I'm having? I love it here. And then they bone. They bone a lot for like multiple chapters. They're just getting freaky and like saying how much that they love each other. And then they talk about their meeting with the mortal queens in 3 days, and so then they just end up boning for like 3 days, because after you bond or whatever, then like you're both really hot and bothered for each other for a while. He's worried that she'll get pregnant, like with the whole war going on, and so she promises to take precautions. And every single effing time a book ever says that, they're going to get pregnant. So inevitably, this is Kaylee, I don't know, I haven't read book 3. She's gonna be pregnant in book 3. Like, she's 100% getting pregnant right now. They go back to the war camp. They do some stuff, and they hang out, and they go and meet the queens. Oh yeah, I completely forgot that this... So only 3 of the 5 queens come to this meeting, and then they pull out the orb, and Rysand tells them about Valaris. And the orb, again, for like some reason Morrigan like can't lie or something with this whole orb thing, so she like casts a vision into it of Valaris as Rysand explains this city and proving that he's like a good person. I'm like, 5,000 years that your people have like kept this a secret, and you're telling me that like you couldn't have done something else? I'm sure over the last 5,000 years your people have been put in similar situations and found alternatives. What do you mean you just give up your homeland like this? It is very, very frustrating to me. And you know what? And they did it for nothing, because the queens don't even believe them. The queens say that it is like a trick maybe, or like some stupid magic. And then the oldest queen reads out a letter that Rysand wrote to her saying how he loved a human, i.e. Feyre, and how they're living happily ever after, and like begs her to help them not have this war so he can live happily. And it's just like back and forth stupid stuff, and eventually the queens are like, no, I don't think I want to make a deal with you, and then they disappear. But where the youngest queen was, there is a lead box, and the lead box contains the book. And it also contains a letter from the youngest queen saying not to trust the other queens, and that apparently there's a little bit of a mutiny going on, and some of them are bad people, and to like watch their backs. And so, wow, I'm like immediate regret. You just showed these people, and apparently they're evil. So way to go. You just sold out your city. And I'm right, by the way, but we'll talk about it in a minute. But they have the book. Point being, they have the book. Yay, I guess. So with that, Rysand, he's like, okay, well, now that we have this, we're going back to Valaris. We're going to make all this happen. And he says, hey, like, Elaine, Nesta, you guys can come to Valaris with us, and we'll protect you with, you know, our lives, and we'll do whatever. And Elaine doesn't want to go because she still wants to marry this guy who she's betrothed to or whatever. And so he says, okay, your choice. I'll send sentinels to come and, or sentries to come and keep an eye on you guys. You won't know they're here. They'll like just be whatever, hidden out of view and stuff, but they'll make sure that you guys are safe in case anything happens. And also I'll have one of them in the shadows show up at noon and midnight every day in case you change your mind and want to come to Valaris. And then they go back home. Amryn, now that she has both parts of the book, she can start like actually translating it and figuring out what these spells are to negate the cauldron's power. And then everybody's just preparing for war. And it's a good thing that they're preparing for war, because Feyre and Cassian go for a walk in the city, wasting time while Rysand is out doing whatever. It's like Rysand, Moore, and Azriel are out preparing for war. And so then Cassian and Feyre are like walking around, and they get attacked, right? A whole bunch of adders and like other flying creature things come and attack the city. This is the first time the city has ever been breached, the first time that the city has ever been attacked. And they just start slaughtering people. Luckily, Cassian fights them off. Amryn all of a sudden appears. She starts protecting people, but they can only do so much. And so then Feyre realizes, and so then she goes over to like the artist quarter where she loves, and she goes and protects those people, and ends up like beating the absolute crap out of an adder and like making like threats, and she jumps on its back and stabs it, and then like stays on top of it as it falls out of the sky, and she's like just talking mad shit in its ear the entire time. And then right as it's about to slam into the cobblestone, she like teleports away. I said, oh my god, girl, that was intense. The reason that she attacked this particular adder was because he had killed a woman in front of Feyre and said, basically in regards of, from, he's pretty much saying like, I got sent like by the mortal queens and Jurian. So Jurian is alive and well. He has been resurrected, and that's alarming. And so that's why she hurt this one so badly. And yeah, they literally, the Mortal Queens immediately sold them out and gave the information to King Hybern. And then these are King Hybern's soldiers attacking the city. Yeah, it's a lot of drama for like multiple chapters. And there's a point where like she goes out to the ocean and attacks them with ice and then turns the water of the ocean into wolves. And then the water wolves that she creates goes and chases down these monsters. I don't know. Don't look at me like that. So eventually, finally, 8 chapters later, they protect everybody, right? They fight off all the people. They run away. They get the wards back up to protect the city. And everybody's just recovering. Rysand feels guilty. No shit, you should. And Amren finally, she cracks the code for the translation. And they are going to teleport into King Hybern's castle. But, like, Rysand can't, because that's how they keep finding them with the arrows and the shootings and the blah, blah, blah randomly, is, like, they were able to start tracking Rysand's magic. And so they're making sure that he doesn't use any. So he's, at the very last second, he's going to teleport into the castle to, like, grab them and then teleport out. But it's just going to be Cassian, Azriel, Morrigan, Feyre. They're going to go into King Hybern's castle to go to the cauldron. Feyre is going to read the spell book thing to negate the cauldron, and then they're going to GTFO out of there. Rysand will teleport in, grab them, teleport out. Amren is going to stay in the city because she has to stay there to, like, keep the magic wards there to, like, protect everybody and stuff, and to keep any other attackers out. So she can't be a part of this battle. Okay, so that's the plan. That's what they're going to do. Do you think it goes well? We have 9 chapters left in the book. Before they go, though, the night before they go on this scary, scary mission, Rysand pulls Feyre aside, and he gives her the ring that she had to find in the Weaver's house, like the hoarder house that she had to originally go and, like, prove to Rysand that she could, like, track stuff, right? She went to find his mother's ring out of that house, right? You're picking up what I'm putting down. You remember that happening? Turns out that actually is an engagement ring that his mother gave to the Weaver specifically because she told Rysand that your future mate should be able to, like, sneak the ring out of the Weaver's house, and if she can't, she's not clever or strong enough to actually be your mate, or, like, your life partner, or whatever you want to call it. And so that was the real test. So that's when I'm like, okay, so then why didn't you tell her then when she got the ring? Okay, it's fine, it doesn't matter. He gives her the ring, and they talk about marriage and getting married, and we can if you want to, even though that's a human thing, and we can throw a party if you want to. And she doesn't want to wear the ring yet because she doesn't want to send, like, a weird message to cause extra drama right now if they're gonna go to war and stuff. And they go into the castle, they find the cauldron, like, immediately. Feyre puts her hand on it, and she's supposed to start saying the spell to negate it, but she ends up getting, like, sucked in or distracted or confused by, like, overwhelmed by, rather, the power of the cauldron, and kind of blacks out for a little bit. And then when she finally comes back to, Azriel is shaking her awake, and Jurian, the human that has been resurrected, comes into the room. He asks about Miriam. She was the one that I told you about, that she was his partner and then left him to go be with some fae person, and then they made her into a fae, and she's the only other human that has ever been turned into a fae. And her partner are now living on some secret, super secret, stealthy island with a bunch of humans or something, right? It's that whole thing. So Jurian's like, where's Miriam? And they're like, I don't know, she died a long time ago. He doesn't believe them. And Feyre is again trying to, like, do the cauldron thing, but she realizes she doesn't have any magic. Jurian got sent down there as a distraction while King Hybern casted new wards and spells to make sure that they didn't have any power. So right now, none of them have any of their little magical abilities at all. And so Jurian collects them. He fires an ash arrow into Azriel's chest, and then he brings them up to the king's throne room. And his throne is constructed of human bones. Interesting. And then Rysand teleported in at some point. I don't know. I don't remember. I'm not looking it back up, okay? But Rysand's here as well in the throne room. So it's Rysand, a shot in the chest with an ash arrow, Azriel, Cassian, Morrigan, Feyre, right? So they all get piled into this throne room. When the king sits on the throne, he says, "Now that I've held up my end of the bargain, I expect you to hold up yours." From the shadows near a side door, 2 figures emerged. I began shaking my head as if I could unsee it as Lucien and Tamlin stepped into the light. And this is Tamlin's character assassination, okay? Like, this is really bad character assassination that's about to go down right now. So Tamlin, in exchange for Feyre, if the king got Feyre back, Tamlin would let the king use the spring court to, like, house his troops. Like, they could stay on Tamlin's lands. Hello? What do you mean? In what world? Again, and, like, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be flippant here. We're doing this over a girl? You were giving up kingdoms that have been up for thousands of years and that, like, you have fought for hundreds of years for. You guys have been kings of these lands for hundreds of years, and y'all are throwing all this shit away in, like, a year of knowing this woman? Multiple of you? My God, it makes me so mad. We made a bargain. I give you over, and he agrees to let my forces enter Prythian through his territory and then use it as a base as we remove that ridiculous wall. And then there's that other bit too, the other thing that I wanted, the king went on. Well, Jurian wanted. 2 birds with 1 stone, really. The High Lord of Night dead, and to learn who his friends were. It drove Jurian quite mad, honestly, that you never revealed it during those 50 years. So now you know, Jurian, and you can do with them as you please. So they are all delivered on a silver platter to the king. Feyre to be forced to be returned to Tamlin, Rysand and his friends to all die, to get tortured. And now they know where Valaris is, so Valaris is no longer safe. This is worst case scenario, and we have 4 chapters left in the book, okay? Shit gets left on the biggest cliffhanger ever, and I'm so mad about it, because the next book is also 600 pages, and I'm so mad about that too. Rysand was barely breathing, barely moving, and I realized it was to keep his scent from becoming apparent. Our scent, our mating bond. Because he doesn't want anybody to know that they're mates. But I'm also like, but if you say that you're mates, then Tamlin can't take you away. But I guess then maybe he would kill her too, like the king or Jurian would kill. I don't freaking know. Tamlin just starts, like, begging for her to come back with him, and she keeps saying no. And so she's pushing back this whole time because she's like, Tamlin, I'm not going with you. I didn't make this deal. Like, I don't want anything to do with this. I'm not going. If you bring me from here, if you take me from my mate, I will destroy you. I will destroy your court and everything you hold dear. Tamlin's lips thinned, but he said simply, you don't know what you're talking about. The king jerked his chin to the guards by the side door, through which Tamlin and Lucien had appeared. No, she doesn't. The door opened again. There will be no destroying. The king went on as people, as women, walked through those doors. 4 women, 4 humans, the 4 remaining queens. Because, the king said. The queen's guards falling into rank behind them, hauling something in the core of their formation. You will find, Feyre, that it is in your best interest to behave. The 4 queens sneered at us with hate in their eyes, hate, and parted to let their personal guards through. Fear like I had never known entered my heart as the men dragged my sisters, gagged and bound, before the king of Hybern. Okay. So, the king says that he wants to work with the humans, not destroy them, and to, like, get the queens on his side and to agree and go along with the whole wall being collapsed thing. He says, look, Jurian, I made him come back to life. I can give you eternal life, you mortal queens. Hop in my cauldron. I'll fill it up with some magic juice. Hop in my cauldron. You'll be immortal. You'll turn into a fae. Right? Look, we've had 2 people do it. Jurian came back to life. I resurrected him, and Faye returned into a fae, and she's going to live forever now. I can guarantee you a eternal youth, right? Immortal, whatever, if you just work with me to get the wall down. And the queens agree with this, but they don't want to just get thrown in the cauldron. They want to make sure that it works first. And so the king is going to prove that the cauldron is safe by throwing Elaine and Nesta into the cauldron first. And so Elaine and Nesta get turned into Fae as well. I don't know. Don't look at me like that. I don't know. Yeah, and he says he did it because Iantha, yeah, you remember that crazy bitch? Apparently she's also working for King Hybern, and she got close to Feyre and had learned about her sisters through Iantha and how strong-willed they were. And so since she survived, and like her sisters must have just as strong of a will as she does, so surely they'll survive this transformation. And so then Iantha is the one that like sold out her sisters to King Hybern to get them here to have all this stuff happen. And so Tamlin has been betrayed on like multiple fronts, and in a very similar situation to Rysand, sold out his people in good faith, maybe made a bad judgment call, and it's all just like going sideways really quickly. I don't freaking know, dude. This is so weird. Everything happening right now, it's like happening so fast. This book was so slow. And then now all of a sudden you're going to give me all of this crazy shit in less than 100 pages and then just leave me hanging? We'll get there. So yeah, Elaine gets forced into the cauldron. She comes out. She's like a sobbing mess on the floor, sobbing because she didn't want this, right? She just wanted to marry her human partner and live a good life and go and garden. And she doesn't want anything to do with any of this stuff. So she's like sobbing on the floor. Lucien comes running over and protecting her because they're mates. Of course they are. So he starts like covering her with a jacket. And then Nesta, they go to put Nesta into the cauldron, and she is fighting tooth and nail. Nesta is a bad beezy, okay? She is fighting this so hard, and she very clearly has been fighting this entire time and like giving them hell. So as she's going into the cauldron and like King tries to like duck her in, she pops back out and like points at him, like promising his death basically. And Feyre, watching this, even notes that he at least had the wherewithal, or like he was smart enough to at least look scared of that, like intimidated by this crazy human. And so then he like pushes her back down into the cauldron, and then Nesta comes out, and she's now a Fae, and she is pissed off. And the whole time too, while this is happening, by the way, and she's like freaking out and crying and like falling to the ground, Cassian is watching and like getting freaked out because they're mates. I don't want to talk about it yet. It happens later. So, but like, it's very clear that that's what's going on. It has been very clear, like I said earlier. So that's a whole thing. And yeah, so she comes out ripping. She comes out ready to fight. And so she rips Elaine out of Lucien's arms and says not to touch her. He says that they're mates, and she tells him to screw off, that they're not. And the queens are about to now begin going into the cauldron. And as they're about to, Rysand wants to interrupt and make a deal with the king before this happens. He's probably going to try to be valiant and like free everybody and like sacrifice himself. But before he has the chance to, Feyre is able to channel her powers despite all of the crazy magical wards and being sapped and like cursed or whatever, and the king taking everybody else's powers, to include Rysand's, the strongest, most crazy Fae ever to exist in the history of ever that you've told me this entire time. Feyre's stronger. So she channels all of her power. She makes this like white crazy power blast happen. Nobody knows what just happened. They think maybe it was a cauldron thing. I don't know. But what she did was she sent out this power, and it broke all of the king's spells and protective wards around his castle. So everybody has their powers back, and everybody can now like teleport in and out of the castle. And so she's trying to mentally like send signals to Rysand down their bond about like, hey, get my sisters out of here. get, like, I'm not going to mean anything that I'm about to say right now. Like, trust me. You just have to trust me. But get my sisters out of here, right? Trying to send something to him, but, like, the walls are still there. Like, the mental walls are still there or something. And so she doesn't know if he actually gets these messages or not. But as this happens, she all of a sudden changes, like, her entire demeanor. And she says, Tamlin, oh my God, what has he done to me? I can't believe he's done this. And tries to act like she's been under some curse. And that maybe, like, the big white flash thing was her coming out of the curse of Rysand's that he's been, like, keeping her under. And so she starts, like, crying and begging Tamlin to protect her from Rysand. And she's, like, hoping that he understands that she doesn't mean this, right? She's like, I just hope he knows. I just hope he understands. And then she begins begging the king to break the bond between her and Rysand. And that's the whole other reason, too, that, like, Tamlin gave away his lands to get Feyre, because the king said that he could break the bond between Rysand and Feyre. And that was the whole reason that Tamlin's been, like, was disappearing a lot, because he was trying to research and, like, scour the freaking continent to try to find a way to stop the deal that she had with Rysand, and then ended up finding out that the king said that he has the cauldron and that the cauldron could make the bond end. Yeah, I guess. And so that's what he's here for. That's, like, the whole purpose of all of this stuff, is to break the bond between them. And so she feigns all of this stuff, and then she's like, Tamlin, please just break this bond. And she starts begging the king to break the bond that she has with Rysand. And then finally she begs enough that the king does. And Rysand was on the ground roaring, and I thought he might have said my name, might have bellowed it as I thrashed and sobbed. I was being shredded. I was dying. No, I didn't want it. I didn't want to. A crack sounded in my ears, and the world cleaved in two as the bond snapped. Tamlin yanked off the glove on my left hand, right? Because that's where she was, like, all tatted. Bare skin greeted him. No tattoo. I was sobbing, and his arms came around me. Every inch of them felt wrong, and I nearly gagged at his scent. She's looking at, Cassian and Morrigan and Azriel and her sisters, and they all know what's going on, right? Nobody's saying anything, but it's like they're sharing some looks. And she's like, they look so hurt, but they give me a look of understanding. I don't know what that means, but it works, because after, or I guess as her and Rysand are, like, freaking out about this bond being broken, Morrigan immediately, like, teleports over, grabs Nesta and Elaine, and teleports away. And then Rysand, Azriel, and Cassian immediately teleport away as well. And the king is super, super pissed off because he didn't realize that the wards were broken, and he's freaking out. And he starts telling Feyre, he's like, give me the book, right? Because she had it earlier, because that's what she was reading. She was, like, reading the book of spell things in the cauldron. He says, give it to me. She doesn't have it. Rysand had taken it, like, out of her pocket or out of her hand or whatever, did a little sleight of hand movement during this whole crazy exchanges, and had grabbed it out of her. And so he teleported away with it. He has the book. He's even more pissed off. But there's nothing he can do about it. And Lucien is freaking out about how they had taken away his mate. And Jurian comes over, and he's like, do you know what Alarian bastards do to pretty females? You won't have a mate left, at least not one that's useful to you in any way. Lucien's answering growl was nothing short of feral. I spat at Jurian's feet. You can go to hell, you hideous prick. Tamlin's hands tightened on my shoulders. Lucien spun toward me, and that metal eye whirred and narrowed. Centuries of cultivated reason clicked into place. I was not panicking at my sister's being taken. I said quietly, we will get her back. But Lucien was watching me too warily. Too warily. I said to Tamlin, take me home. So, also, like, her cursing at this guy, that is not how the Spring Court operates, right? Like, they are very prim and proper. And so she has, kind of been all up in the Night Court, and so she's this heathen now. Like, she doesn't have manners anymore, and she talks ill to people and just being crazy disrespectful and whatever. So, like, that's a whole thing that's happening right now. And then Lucien is, like, questioning everything that she's doing, and like, I don't know how you broke this bond. I don't really believe what you're doing. That you switched up crazy, right? Like, he's seeing through it. Tamlin, I think, is so blinded by love and the potential of having his woman back, right? This woman that he's in love with or obsessed with or whatever, by having her back, that he is like ignoring all of these red flags and stuff. And so she says, take me home. The king asks about the book, and then right before Tamlin, Lucian, and Feyre, before they teleport away, I said to the king and Jurian and the queens assembled, already at the lip of the cauldron and hissing over who would go first, I will light your pyres myself for what you did to my sisters. That's crazy. That's crazy. Insert the freaking Sleep Token song. So she says this. What a badass thing to end on, by the way. Not a big fan of her, but like, killer mic drop before you teleport away. And then chapter 68 is from Rysand's point of view. This is the first, I believe, the first and only chapter we've had from his perspective. And he has been teleported back to the townhouse in Valaris. And Amren is there, and she's like, where is she? And he doesn't answer. And she's pissed off because she's like, where is Feyre? I can't believe that you guys left her. I can't believe that you let this happen. He goes on to explain about the bond being broken. That's impossible, Amren said. That sort of bond can't be broken. The king said he could do it. The king is a fool, Amren barked. That sort of bond cannot be broken. No, it can't. They both looked at me. I cleared my head, my shattering heart, breaking for what my mate had done, sacrificed for me and my family, for her sisters, because she hadn't thought she was essential. What? Even after all she had done, the king broke the bargain between us. Hard to do, but he couldn't tell that it wasn't the mating bond. So that's why the tattoo went away. He didn't break the mating bond. He broke the freaking deal that they had, their bargain or whatever. And so Mor again, she's like, does Feyre know? Yes. And now my mate is in our enemy's hands. Go get her, Amren hissed. Right now. No, I said, and I hated the word. They gaped at me, and I wanted to roar at the sight of the blood coating them, at my unconscious and suffering brothers on the carpet before me. But I managed. They got, like, tortured, by the way. There was, like, a whole bunch of power things, and everybody got, like, slammed against walls, and they're, like, bleeding really bad, okay? I skipped over a lot of that because I don't really care, but everybody's hurt right now. But I managed to say to my cousin, weren't you listening to what Feyre said to him? She promised to destroy him from within. Morrigan's face paled, her magic flaring on Azriel's chest. She's going into that house to take him down, to take all of them down. I nodded. She is now a spy, with a direct line to me. What the King of Hybern does, where he goes, what his plans are, she will know and report back. She's your mate, Amren bit out at me, not your spy. Go get her. She is my mate, and my spy, I said too quietly. And she is the High Lady of the Night Court. What? Morrigan whispered. I caressed a mental finger down that bond, now hidden. I have tears in my eyes, by the way, not the good kind. I caressed a mental finger down the bond that was now hidden deep, deep within us, and said, if they had removed her other glove, they would have seen a second tattoo on her right arm, the twin to the other, inked last night when we crept out, found a priestess, and I swore her in as my High Lady. Not a consort, Amren blurted, blinking. I hadn't seen her surprised in centuries. Not consort, not wife. Feyre is High Lady of the Night Court. My equal in every way. She would wear my crown, sit on a throne beside mine, never sidelined, never designated to breeding and parties and children rearing. My queen. And so he's like, yeah, we just have to be patient while she takes down the spring court and have faith and whatever. And Morrigan and Amren are like, so what are we going to do in the meantime? And he says, until then, we go to war. Chapter 69. It's the last chapter of the book. I am so sleep deprived. It is 10:30 p.m. I have been up since 5. I'm so fucking tired. I'm so tired of this stupid ass book. I'm so tired. Back at the spring court, we're in Feyre's perspective. Feyre is basically saying the exact same stuff that we just learned from Rysand. You know, she's like, oh my God, the spring court is so beautiful. She starts to cry and, you know, playing the part. And she's like, I never thought I would see it again. I thought you never would either. And she's thinking, and you sold us out, sold out every innocent in this land for that, all so you could have me back. Love was a balm as much as it was a poison, but it was love that burned in my chest, right alongside the bond that the king of Hybern hadn't so much as touched, because he hadn't known how deep and far he'd have to delve in to cleave it, to cleave me and Rysand apart. It had hurt like hell to have the bargain between us ended, and Rhys had done his job perfectly, his horror flawless. We had always been so good at playing together. I had not doubted him, had not said anything, but yes, when he had taken me down to the temple the night before and swore our vows. Okay. Tamlin's like, I feels like some nightmare, but I remembered you. And when I saw you there today, I started clawing at it, fighting because I knew it might be my only chance. And then Lucien cuts in because, again, he's suspicious, rightfully so. And he's like, how did you break free of his control? I wanted it. I don't know how. I just wanted to break free of him, so I did. Tamlin says, are you hurt? And she's like, I don't know. I don't remember those things. Because he's, like, insinuating that she has been abused in, like, multiple ways, or you know what I'm saying, by Rysand. And so she's just trying to play it off. And then she tries to... I don't know, soothe some fears maybe. So then she like rubs his face and she's like, you're real. You freed me. You freed yourself, Tamlin breathed. He gestured to the house. Rest and then we'll talk. I need to find Ianthe. How did I say her name? Iantha? He's like, I have to find her and make some things very, very clear. I want to be a part of it this time, I said, halting when he tried to herd me back into that beautiful prison. No more shutting me out, no more guards, please. I have so much to tell you about them. Bits and pieces, but I can help. We can get my sisters back. Let me help. And in like italics. So I guess she's like super thinking this, but like all of this is in her head because it's first person, so I'm not sure why we're like italicizing certain thoughts, but sure. Italicized. Help lead you down the wrong direction, help bring you and your court to your knees and take down Jurian and those conniving, treacherous queens, and then tear Iantha into tiny, tiny pieces and bury them in a pit no one can find. Oh. Tamlin scanned my face and finally nodded. We'll start over. We'll do things differently. When you were gone, I realized I had been so wrong, Feyre, and I'm sorry. Editing Kaylee. I realized that I didn't make a comment here, but if Tamlin is telling the truth and he realized how much he messed up and stuff, then all of this could have been avoided. He could have just learned his lesson. You know what I mean? Like, her disappearing and him realizing, like, oh, I didn't mean to hurt her in that way. I wasn't thinking. And it could have been like, she could have talked to him. You know what I mean? And maybe things would have been different and been better. But we just... like, abandoned him the second that he did this thing, but I know it was over the course of months, and it was, like, repeated stuff, and it was just, like, the straw that broke the camel's back, but, like, and she did try to talk to him a lot, and so did Lucien, and he ignored it, so maybe there wasn't any hope for change for Tamlin. I don't know. This idea of him saying, like, yeah, I agree, things can be different now. I'm like, so, and she's thinking, this is regular font, this is not italicized. Too late, too damned late, but I rested my head on his arm, and he slipped it around me. It doesn't matter. I'm home now. Forever, he promised. Forever, I parroted, glancing behind us to where Lucien stood in the gravel drive, his gaze on me, face hard, as if he'd seen through every lie, as if he knew of the second tattoo beneath my glove and the glamour I now kept on it, as if he knew that they had let a fox into the chicken coop and he could do nothing, not unless he never wanted to see his mate Elaine again. Why are you reminding me that his mate is Elaine? I know that. We just learned that, and you said it to me 18 times in 2 chapters. I'm aware that they are mates. How many times is mate said, do you think, in this book? 111. I gave Lucian a sweet, sleepy smile, so our game began. We hit the sweeping marble stairs to the front doors of the manor. The very last paragraph of the book has 38,000 highlights. And so Tamlin unwittingly led the High Lady of the Night Court into the heart of his territory. Do you see why I'm pissed the off? Because now I have to read book number 3. Assholes. And it's another 600 pages. And that's probably going to be fucking mad. Ow! Sorry, I'm not taking it on you, babe. My bad. Sorry. Yeah, so I'm just like, because I know that that's going to be left on a cliffhanger too, right? Indubitably, it's going to be left on a cliffhanger on book number 3. And then I'm going to end up reading this entire damn series. And I don't even like it. I don't even like it here. But I can't not read it. My brain won't let me not know what's next. So I'm probably honestly going to end up just like finding summaries of them and just read the summaries and scratch the itch that way. Because I cannot do any more of this, dude. But everybody says that the first 3 are the best. And so now I'm kind of like, well, bro, I kind of feel obligated to read the 3rd one. I kind of feel obligated at this point. I don't know. And I'm so mad. And like Rhysand really pisses me off. And I still don't like Feyre. I love Amren. I love Morrigan. I love Cassian and Azriel. And I love the dynamics. And I love the whole thing of the Night Court. I'm not a fan of how things are handled. I don't like the way that Tamlin just got like, again, his character assassinated. Like, why is he doing this? Why did he do any of this? Why did we make him a monster all of a sudden? He was freaking legit in the first book. And then Rhysand's freaking 11-page exposition to, like, redeem himself. Not working on me, dude. I don't know. This was so weird. I feel like I'm in Crazy Town. I feel like I'm in Looney Tunes or something. I don't know how I got here. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if I like it, but, like, I kind of like parts of it. But a lot of it's, like, not hitting, and so much of it is repetitive. Literally, again, I know I said it before, and I'll say it again, because I guess I'm repetitive, too. I think this book has broken my brain. It was so like, 250 pages of this 650-page book could have been chopped out, because it was just reminding you or re-saying something or giving you the exact same information with, like, a minor twist to it. You only need to tell me once. But I also know that I'm saying that as somebody that, like, obviously I binge these books really quickly. And so I'm like, maybe for a regular reader that is reading a 700-page book, maybe they do need the reminders, right? For a lot of people, if they read at, like, a normal human rate and they, take a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months to finish a book like this, maybe those reminders are helpful to reorient them with the story and with what's happening if they've taken a long break between readings, or you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, maybe there's benefit to it for certain types of readers, but for me that read, was able to consume this book, right, through my little robot voice reading it to me over the course of like 4 days or so, and then taking notes and re-looking at it multiple times, where I'm just like seeing the flaws and the repetitions, like punching me in the, like, curb stomping me, you know what I mean? Like, I get it. So I feel like I might be biased. I feel like my experience might be a little unique, and I admit that. And so in that regard, frustrated by the writing. And then also I bring this up every chance I can. I think I have been so spoiled by Romantasy, by T. Kingfisher, her Paladin's Grace series, that, like, nothing is ever going to live up to that series to me, in terms of anything, like writing quality, character development, character, whatever, that, like, I feel like I already experienced the best of the best. And then I go and read this stuff and I just don't get it. But it has a cult following. Why does it have a cult following? It's because none of you have read T. Kingfisher's Paladin's Grace series. Please. I have a whole video on it for the first book, okay? Go watch it if you want to. Let that bully you into reading Paladin's Grace. And Sword Heart, I'm going to do a review of Sword Heart. Like I said, I'm literally going to scream it from the rooftops until every single one of you motherfuckers goes and reads it. It's so good. It's so much better than this trash. And I love sad boys. Why is this happening? I love sad boys with a moral complex or morality like a savior complex. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say. I don't know. I gotta go to freaking bed. I'm just like pissed off now. Should I read book 3? Comment down below what your thoughts are of all this nonsense. I'm sorry this video is like so all over the place. Like I said, this will be my last work trip for a while. Until, well, that's a lie. In May, I'm going on a trip, but it's for the channel. I'm going to Booknet Fest in Orlando, Florida. I think it's in Orlando in May. Booknet Fest, really, really cool. I believe Rachel from Reads with Rachel and Natalie from Weirdo Book Club are going to be there. So I get to meet my channel, my little YouTube friends, and a couple other people and whatnot, and get to go and like network and like meet a bunch of obviously readers and other people that are going to be there, and there's a bunch of panels, and it looks like a lot of fun. I'm very, very excited for it. So I'm doing that in May, so that'll be kind of crazy, but that'll also have some like exclusive, you know, content for it. And then I have other work trips but that's later, and I can plan for those better. This one was just kind of weird and snuck up on me. That's all I got. I feel like this video is already so long, so I love you so much. Thank you so much for your support and everything. Y'all are phenomenal. You know the drill. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.